Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Welcome to SYNCTANK. How you doing, David? Good to see you.
Pretty good. How you doing?
Yeah. I just was looking at Taylor Swift's X page, right? Her bio says, "I'm the problem, it's me." Right? I think that kind of sums it up. But before I get too how you been, bro? Apparently she's Muhammad now. Peace be upon her. Keep going. How you been? What do you do this week?
What did I do this week? No.
You stretched?
I didn't stretch as much as I could have, but I stretched a little bit of bow poses here and there, some camel, some
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of whatever that one is where you lay on your stomach and you kind of reach back and hold your ankles. That one too.
You should do a thing where like you stretch canvases, like canvas stretching yoga. It would be like a thing where how you physically stretch while you're stretching a canvas because you're one with the piece. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't realize for years that I was stretching wrong in certain ways, and so like met this woman. She was basically went to one of the more renowned yoga schools in India, and she was basically like, if you have a place of stress, if you have a place of tension, like you always want to stretch into it, not away from it. And so like I've been like, if I was like my shoulder, someone like, it's like, no, you don't do that. You can scrunch it in, and that's where you get the release from. And so that's the same reason why if you're doing any kind of like back bend or like you're lifting your head back, it's really important to open your mouth. And my I don't do asana as much as I used to, but when I would do that, when I do that for a lot, and I wasn't doing that, I think it kind of I wasn't getting the optimal benefit from it. So basically, you just want to open your mouth, like the way it was explained to me. Excuse the un-PC nature of this, but she said, "Don't be afraid to look retarded."
Yeah.
Because you're opening your mouth. Because
I've been seeing, a lot of people that do like right before this. I'll try to because people bend so much and you look down all the time. So I'll try to do this thing where I stretch my throat area, and I think it helps your vocal cords to just before a show. Before you're gonna talk for like 2 hours.
Interesting. Yeah.
Open them up a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, well, your mandible connects to your occipital ridge. So your occiput and your mandible, and there's more muscles between your mandible and your occipital ridge and your like scapula than like anywhere in your body, because your head is so freaking heavy and has to move so many different ways. It's just like the most versatile part of your body, pretty much, you know. And so so that's like people get tension in their necks and in their shoulders more than anywhere in the body, you generally speaking, because we hold so much stress there. So like, you know, doing back bends where you're kind of protected and you open up your mouth, it's like, yeah, it's really good for you. Yeah.
Show, like from an angle, you know, looking forward. I was also like, I worked in that song because I was talking to Flawed, and Flawed was talking about how he doesn't like how people breathe. Like people don't know how to breathe, right? You know, it's like I never learned to breathe. That whole idea, you never learn to breathe because you in school learned everything else but how to breathe. And you see all, you know, like Sarah Jessica Parker. I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm just saying she was with her mouth open. You know, it's possible. I'm not a sleep doctor, but I don't know. Right. Do I just jump into Taylor Swift, or do you have anything you want to say before I do? Because I can't help it. This week was just all Taylor Swift week, you know.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's interesting. So what's the deal with her boyfriend?
There's so much. Let me start, but there's a super chat, which, Lisby, I'm gonna do the Box Saga. Like, give me like a few more minutes because I want to use Box Saga to like calm myself down after I've talked about Taylor Swift. But we will play the Box Saga, and I owe you one, Lisby. Okay. So Taylor Swift the other day, there's like a war on, right? And the first thing was, if you looked for Taylor Swift, I think if you do it now, it's fixed now. Is it? If you type in like AI, I know that'll do it. Boom, it's locked, right? So for a while, this was a good fix. If you type Taylor Swift, you didn't find any Taylor Swift. That's the best possible solution, right? It's like it's effectively blacklisting her from the platform. However, you know, she made this big thing about, can I type in deepfake, or what is it going to take? Because they're going to say, oh, that's bad too. I'm going to leave it right there. Debacle, deepfake, TechCrunch. Frustratingly preventable. She says she wants to have legal action or something against people. My conspiracy theory, though, goes deeper than this. Let me find the picture that I'm talking about. Come on, man. How far do I have to go to find it? Dang it. It's lost now. Lost in the wind. There's so many things. Okay, tell you what. You talk about
that's funny. I was looking at South Park. Earlier when you mentioned Sarah Jessica Parker, I was thinking of that South Park where there's like they put the moose horns on her and leave her out in the woods, whatever. You know, it's really mean spirited or whatever. I never met the woman. I don't know. You know, but yeah. Anyway, I don't know. It's just funny that I was thinking of South Park and I'm looking at South Park all of a sudden. It was like
everything's all about South Park. I have a whole other thing I was thinking about South Park earlier today. I'm not like, you know, that song from Loverboy, Pig and Elephant. Yeah, that's from that episode. Anyway, so we'll get into that in a second. Point is, this is the first deep fake, and I'm showing it to you because Taylor Swift showed it to you. This is on YouTube. This is from her music video from her Bad Reputation album. In the video, Ready for It. And if you watched Ready for It, this is from 6 years ago. Okay, so we're talking about deep fakes. She deep faked herself, and it starts out super occult. She's wearing her weird hoodie, like a Macbeth Shakespearean play, and look at her. I mean, she's dressed not just naked, but like an AI doll. Like
how much of this? You're talking about a music video. How much creative control does she have, if any, in this music video? Like I mean, does she do like, because you know, different musicians is different things. Like you know, Madonna would hire the best choreographers to do her shows, but then you have like and music videos and everything. But then you have like Lady Gaga, say what you will, but she does do her own choreography. Michael Jackson did his own choreography. Right. And we're talking about pop stars. Like, how much of that is Taylor Swift? I know she apparently writes all of her own music, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that what?
Well, the video was directed by Joseph Kahn. Yeah, I think it's Lucifer, but it could be Taylor Swift. The point is that Joseph Kahn, though, Eminem, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Snoop Dogg, Chris Brown, Destiny's Child, Mariah Carey, all these kinds of pretty big music videos. So to be fair, you know, and they are often occult videos, but I think that's part of the game, right? Like the more you look at Taylor Swift, the more she's integrating, and she's becoming more and more culturally part of the elite, right? Like that's the thing that I think people are missing about all this. Like there's this huge like right now she's 34 years old. She's going to be 35 in time of the election. I know that it was it's a very Tim-ism to say, oh yeah, she could be, because she can, you know, technically. But I think is it this clip where from Batman where Lex Luthor, or Superman, where Lex Luthor says, you know, I shouldn't run for president. Do you have any idea how much power I would have to give up to become president? I feel like Lex Luthor is Taylor Swift also in that respect. Like she would be better off not becoming president, but she's in a position to influence people, right? And so this whole thing, I mean, when I brought up like the reason why I thought it was interesting that she's talking about the deep fake thing. Oh, there he is. He's in the background. He's like, they're having the debate without me. Yeah.
Especially about deep fakes. Come on, man.
Well, did you see the clip I just put up a second ago, which was her music video in the nude bodysuit from 2016 or whatever it was, Bad Reputation. Like, so the point is like the idea that we're creating, or the plebeians are creating AI deepfakes of a person who created the mold for this. It sticks with me two ways. Like on one hand, it's a little ironic. It's a little absurd. It's absurd. And that's also what leads me to like look for the logic. The absurdism is she's telling you not to do something she does herself. The other thing is when you're told not to do something, doesn't that make you want to do it? And so is this not just, I'm serious, is this not just Taylor Swift?
Right.
Reactionary people that don't like her to be in love with her through incubus, succubus, sex magic. I'm not kidding.
It doesn't that principle that you're describing express itself everywhere all the time? I mean,
yeah, Hillary Clinton.
Where yeah, exactly. Where you get you're totally, and it's like, are you like, you get to the point where you're like, dude, is somebody instructing you to say this to achieve the effects that it's getting, or is that just a byproduct? Are you really not making the connection?
Well, there's just a lot of people that benefit from the. So Mike Benz posted this video earlier, which is like, you can watch the incredible exact moment when a rep from the Pentagon Psychological Operations, a research firm, pitched NATO's military psyop center on turning Taylor Swift into an asset for the Western Military Alliance to stop disinformation on the internet. And this idea right here, I mean, this is not a new concept that you can use, something that people are all excited about. And yeah, white women are effectively, I'm gonna say it again, they're turning Taylor Swift into a Muhammad. They're turning her into their prophet. They've set it up so that she is a perfect person despite herself. Like it has nothing to do with who she really is anymore, because she's now bigger, and people will freak out and protect her image, right? So, like in a violent frenzy.
Andreas, is that what her like performing on the cabala is about? Like it's just like they have like the you know, the cube emerges, and she like the way she, like, I don't know.
I forget if you even might have been the one who said this to me. Oh, there's also her Michael Jackson. But yeah, I think you were the one who said this to me at some point. This idea of integration, like she's being integrated into the elite.
Well, and I want to say that I don't think this is a recent phenomenon, because I remember when I first joined the military, I would go into the PX, you know, the base sort of like super Walmart, and this is like 2001, 2002. Like Taylor Swift had basically just breached into like the mainstream, and I remember them playing this CD everywhere on the military base, and then they had like the CDs stocked at the end of like all the little checkout counters. And it was just weird because I was like, clearly, like whoever this chick is, I never heard of her before. Like they've got some kind of in with the military where they don't just put just random.
Was it? Are you sure it wasn't like 2011 or 12? Was it really when she was like 12?
I'm positive. I'm positive, because I was out of the military by 2005 or 6. I mean, and it was weird because I was like, who's listening to this? I don't know how old she was, but I was like, who's listening to this 14-year-old country girl on the base that it's so popular that it's like on every checkout aisle? Like how did she get this kind of placement with military in particular? And it makes sense that now they're weaponizing her after it was planted way, way long ago.
Yeah. And there was Taylor Swift, the musical hotels of Disney World had the Taylor Swift suites and everything set up in 2010 or something like that. So even at that point, there's like further perpetuation from the inside to get Taylor Swift to become so famous. There's this idea that she also writes her own music is really interesting to me, because so does like Mr. Rogers. I don't know. It's like she has 26 songs with the same chord progressions. I know, and she's not punk rock, so it's really, I don't know how she gets away with
it. She's pop rock, right?
Yeah, it's like it's
There's no punk element.
But I remember also, you know, this was a big thing, was using Taylor Swift during the 2016 election. There were all of these pictures of her with, you know, like quotes from other dictatorships, shall we say? I mean, and it was not really her
other dictatorships besides the pop dictatorship.
Besides this one, you know. But yeah, I mean, they did a lot of these. Who's they?
I think what you're might be speaking to, Andreas, about something I may have said, was that I feel like it wasn't long ago we discussed that MTV Awards show. Right. I don't know what year that was. It was a long time ago, but it was like it was Duncan's Ritual. So they had every single performance with some other stage in that. And so if there was to be the one that's not in the book per se, but the humiliation ritual that ends the thing, where somebody's tested and you see how well they handle it, whether with grace or whatever. Like, so that was the thing with Kanye. So I felt at the time that felt scripted to me, like, because the whole thing felt like it was building towards something, like that particular award show. And then it was kind of like they were deciding who is going to be the next big, you know, who are we putting in, who are we imbuing, you know, where you can almost like deify a pop star, and it's like who's and it didn't seem like Taylor Swift. She was pretty relatively new at that time, and she was young. And then it was like, what did Kanye come out and say? He goes, this oh, come on, we all know Beyonce had the best music video, this is whatever. And it's like, and she's just standing there and just kind of like, what the hell, what is happening? And I don't know how spontaneous that was from Kanye. It just feels like a big PR event, which is what this feels like too. So the argument, the theory that, you know, these particular teams having to come down to Kansas City and the 49ers is interesting too, because Joe Montana played for both teams, right? So he'll be there on the sidelines like he was for this last game, watching, in this case, two teams that he actually played for. I think Eminem was supposed to have been on the field for that last game because Detroit or whatever. Really? It's like kind of funny, but I guess he went. But
that's pretty crazy.
But yeah, but this idea that it's like, you know, she has all attention on her halftime show. It's like, if somebody doesn't have a connection to football, if they're going to have anything, it's going to be the halftime show. And so if she has some kind of, like, you know, Biden thing, even if it's not there on the spot, it's the amount of attention, you know. So it's just it feels very Bernaysian as well to me. I don't know.
Yeah, and again, like, this is a great evidence, Thomas, that this came, you know, when she's 2003. I found the other one too. I mean, she's her whole life she was educated in a music school, and she was like geared up the same way someone's geared up to be a politician since they're a child. She's been geared up to be this entertainer.
The one that I remember distinctly, I just found it. It's called Volume 2, and it was released in 2003.
Is it a Roman numeral?
Yeah, it's this one right here. This is the one that I remember seeing all over the PXs,
like the cover of Felicity. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I was looking it up. I was like, 2006. I know for sure it wasn't. So she signed her deal in 2006, and that's when she started releasing all of her mainstream albums. But prior to that, I guess these CDs, she had like boots on ground. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, like some kind of a non-grassroots operation to put her CDs into all these different locations.
Wow.
I've only listened to one Taylor Swift CD at length, like the whole thing, and it was because
divine.
It's
divine.
It was I think was it the last one, or like how long ago was that? So it was at the same time that I Love You Darling came out. She released an album, and so I couldn't help but play it because her ex-boyfriend was in I Love You Darling, and the album felt like kind of like a love letter. So I was kind of tripping out on that. So what's that guy's name? He's a musician too. I forget.
Her ex-boyfriend?
Her ex-boyfriend. Yeah, he's a big time musician. What's his name?
I feel like we don't like him. If he's a Tay ex, that
are you pro Tay? That's what it is. I mean, yeah. I'm just saying she's the moonchild. I'm not pro or against. I'm trying to be objective here. Was it Harry something or other?
Harry Styles.
It was. Oh my gosh.
It's Harry Styles. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. That's adorable. So that kind of, talk about your Moonchild ritual magic right there. I don't know. Hey, look what happens when you type in Moonchild. That's fun.
Right.
This was good. Snopes.com, true or false. Did Taylor Swift perform witchcraft on stage during the Eras tour? Get it? Because there's no true or false, because it just tells you about how she did. Like, when things are true on Snopes, they just gonna write an article. There's no like survey says at the end there. So, well, here's how she said she was practicing witchcraft, and she does wear a weird cloak, and there's a lot of specific things she's like, okay, sure, she's practicing a little bit of magic, and she responds to taunts about her witchcraft and stuff, saying, never beating the sorcery allegations. She says that's what she says. She's never gonna beat the sorcery allegations. Okay,
right,
so,
but isn't that everybody everywhere in the whole fucking industry?
Not
true, but like she's really good at it, right? I think that's what we're
not to be too semantic, but isn't witchcraft different than sorcery, or are these interchangeable terms? Because I thought a sorcerer was distinct from a wizard, which was distinct from a witch.
Sorcerer etymology, word control magic. I think she's trying to control. That's even more accurate to what we're concerned about. She's trying to control the magic.
Is this a witch hunt? Are we participating in a witch hunt?
It's
right
like
now?
a witch.
Or did we find the witch so it's not a hunt?
It's like a witch pursuit thing. It's not it's more like that. No, I think it's cool because like we're pro people having their own. It's America. We want people to have their.
I'm pro everything. I'm pro Tay. I'm pro AI Tay.
Yeah,
everything
I want some phenomenological diversity. I'm a little less pro because of what I said earlier, which is I think that she's literally figured out the cost of this ritual is that you get all of these involuntary celibates, they're calling them incels, to tie their sexual energies to her through tantra, through her weird Palladian gray alien deep fakes. And these deep fakes, it's the thing is she's like, you don't like me, then you can like this thing you manifest about me. And I'm just warning people because it's like, say no to drugs, say no to Taylor Swift AIs.
Right.
You got to be careful.
It's just the next tier in what has been happening for a really long time, right? So you could go back to the Beatles with that. Like, I didn't really get like the whole thing with the Beatles on that level. One day, well, yeah, that's what I was thinking a second ago. Yeah, but then there's an explanation for that, by the way. Do you know the explanation? I'll happily.
They were bigger. They were bigger in India and parts of Africa. So
no, and they said that the bigger it was this statement of like that religion will end and rock and roll will continue. Like rock and roll will outlive religion, and so that was what. But when asked about it after the fact, after people were already all over the place burning their Beatles records and stuff, John explained that when he said what he said, he was heavily influenced or impacted by a book called The Passover Plot. And the Passover plot is that idea of Jesus faking his death, and so which gets kind of interesting for the Paul is dead people or whatever. But like that he took a drug, and that the drug kind of like a lot of
Shakespeare.
And so there's that idea. But what's interesting too is that there was actually a movie made of the Passover plot, and it has Donald Pleasance. And if you know, Donald Pleasance had interplay with the Beatles in multiple ways. He did actually like. If you know Donald Pleasance, he's in THX 1138. He's a lot of movies, Polanski films and stuff. But he's actually in a Beatles cover on the inside, or Beatles album. You open it up, and yeah, he's also he's in Sharon Tate's first film 13 as well.
Yeah, he's also he's the guy who kidnaps the kids in Escape from Witch Mountain.
Oh yeah, totally. yeah. He did an album, a children's album with I think Paul McCartney about a little mouse who's stuck outside in the snow on Christmas, and he's in the Sgt. Pepper movie also. So it's like it's of all the people they could have casted to for the Passover plot. I find it interesting that somebody who's so connected with the Beatles, considering that John Lennon used that as his explanation or used it. I don't know. Whatever the case, he had opinions on religion at the time. He was impacted by the Passover plot. It's interesting stuff.
Right. I mean, we'll probably find out that he helped get it produced at some point. I wouldn't be surprised. He seemed to like to do that. I think that's what's going on though with Taylor Swift. Like, she's gearing up in a way that she can get other people to manifest art that's about her. And this is kind of what scared me when people early on, when Biden wasn't even like, he just was going to be a considered candidate against Trump in the 2020 election. People were laughing, but they laughed too hard. And they made too many memes like, hey, look how funny this would be if Biden was to run.
The same thing happened with Trump in the first place, right? Isn't that just musical chairs?
And I kept saying, like, stop. Just don't mention it. Don't mention his name. Let him disappear. But people kept going. And eventually he was nominated. So
everyone out there, listen to Andreas next time he tells you to stop making memes.
I'm serious. Like, I wouldn't say that. Why would I? I love the memes. I'm telling you this for a reason. Taylor
Meme
Swift
Lord condemns memes. That's the headline.
I know this is the, like, for once and all that I'm going to even talk about the TS Swiftie incident and problem. The solution is literally just to blacklist her. It was completely correct for X to erase her name from the internet. And okay, so we talked a bit about this idea that first off, how evil is it that she's using up all the carbon emissions? Depends on how Californian you are. But the fact that she's been flying all over the place, that was a sign a few months ago that she was using a lot of energy, right? And if you're a witch and you're sorcerer and you're controlling the patterns of energy, to use a lot of the energy is also to be in control of how that energy is being used. And I know that seems just super subtle, but I think this is a big sign that she's moving toward.
Well, now consider all the energy being used by all the GPUs to generate all of the Taylor Swift AI images. It probably dwarfs her personal expenditure and that of her team and all the private jets, like all of those AI cards churning away. That's even more energy being expunged for that.
Absolutely.
Well, it's also everyone's looking, not everyone, but people are drawn to be very, very interested in what her views are because from what I understand, she's been largely apolitical. And so she says anything, then it's like for all the attention. And I'm sure that's probably why she's so liked at the same time, you know?
She went blue though, because there was all those Hitler quotes that they memed with her. And then so she went out and she said, no, I'm blue and I'm supporting Biden. And that's why things got really interesting this week because, okay, on one hand, you have the Super Bowl thing, which we haven't fully covered yet, but half of what made the Super Bowl so popular, or the football Kansas City team so popular, are the deepfake memes because there's all those crazy pictures of her wearing like their red clothes and she's like in the bleachers as if it was Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And that was the for half of the crowd. The other half of the crowd are like legitimately interested already in football. So this is already pushing people again that are not interested in a subject into new territories, and it's bringing with them an obsession. Now you have this Taylor army that is upset. There's nothing to do with the football game itself, right? And there's this conspiracy theory that people are losing, that the NFL is pushing to make sure the Kansas City Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl because let's just say if Kansas City Chiefs and Taylor Swift were at the Super Bowl, it would be the biggest Super Bowl we've had in 30 years.
Well, that was a weird game, that last game, that 49ers game, because they had a choice to be made whether or not to do the field goal or to just keep charging forward. And I guess the nature of the Detroit coach is that that's kind of his style, I guess. Like it's not like a new thing for him. Like he has that tendency or whatever. So, but it really did throw the game. The game could have gone in a totally different direction. And that was like right around halftime. So it's like, you're like getting to the middle of the game. Detroit was way ahead. And then the script flipped. And it felt like I could see the line between like the chaos factor and then like the directive. Cause it was like, it didn't take much to tilt it. Bill saw it. I saw it. It seemed pretty apparent. At the same time, I say chaos factor. Like these guys are playing a game. Like they can only influence it to such a degree. I don't think it's like a complete control. Like you're like, this game is rigged. Well, these guys are playing. You make a major decision like that, it can turn the game though. And so
they should be sequestered like a freaking like a sealed jury. Like the players, once the game starts, they're not talking to anyone that has access to the outside world. They're talking to the coaches. Nobody.
The coaches should be the ones sequestered too. But the other thing is that with football, it's not like rugby. Like in rugby, you have this human organic energy that can get exhausted. With football, there's these start stops. And with start stops, it's really easy to manipulate a game different directions. Granted, you have it from both ends, but if they're both in on it together, or if the entire, I'm not saying this is the case, but if, again, the amount of money that could be made from Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl, from billions of people around the world. Because remember, I mean, the most often I've seen Super Bowl is outside of the United States. If I'm in France, if I'm in Argentina, people be like, I'll be like, come over, let's hang out. They're like, dude, it's Super Bowl. And I'm like,
I'm not against, I'm becoming more and more pro Tay throughout this discussion, only because if she could be used as a beacon, like this, like loosh magnet to attract the money and the energy of the outside world and bring it back into America. But then I'm not a big expert on Tay.
I think you're not a big expert on Super Bowl if you think that money goes back to America. These are like giant Chinese international corporations and Saudi Arabia. It's the same people that run the other football, soccer. Right? Like,
she also lost a point for Harry Styles. I feel like no true American would
ever
bang Harry Styles.
When she came out all blue against the 4chaners, I immediately thought like either this is a great cover, because now she can say publicly it's like Trump, you can say one thing and then people believe QAnon is another. She would have that power. And so that's a very powerful thing to have, that you can be, that is the first step of becoming a politician, that people believe you're saying something, they know you're saying something opposite than what's coming out of your mouth. That's kind of brilliant. By the way, the Detroit Tartars, remember, that was the team name originally, and they changed it. It was the first team that had to be changed for racial reasons, the Detroit Tartars.
Were there Tartars out there that were like, I'm offended?
No.
And then the mud flood took over their house again?
I doubt there are many people in Detroit that were offended. You know what I mean? Just generally. Detroit just seems like the kind of place that you get
too busy getting robbed.
Yeah, you're busy.
No, Detroit's fucking gentrified at this point. I mean, Detroit that exists is nothing like the Detroit that we associate it with. It's like such an industrial area. Right. But it's not really like that anymore. There's lots of gardens and
right. No, the Detroit Tartars would have been in the 19th century until the 1970s. So they even have Tartar Field, a lot of music played there. I mean, if Taylor Swift wants to impact the universe, impact the American election, she could. I feel like, in a sense, because enough people are almost, I mean, she's got enough fans now, and she's old enough that she's got 18-year-old fans. Their first vote, their first naive voters, she's got millions of them.
It's like the other side of like Kanye. Like when you look at the extremes in terms of that, in both cases, what is the commonality is that you have people who are just surrounded by people that want something from them. There's no real, like, it must be so hard to have a real fucking interaction, or not just interaction, like a connection with somebody when you are such an icon. It's just like, what would that even be like? Like, I can't imagine, man. It's got to be weird as hell. Is everybody kissing your ass all the time?
Mashable really wrote an article that says, here's why the theory that Taylor Swift is a Satanist clone absolutely checks out. I'm just reading this, guys. I'm not saying it's true, but God, look at the picture and tell me you haven't thought about it ever since you first saw it.
It's totally uncanny. It's true.
It's uncanny. So we're in the uncanny valley, right?
Yeah.
But there's apparently some circumstantial evidence that could make it work. Apparently, Shrek and Swift are both represented by the serpent emoji and have blonde hair. Shrek's dad founded the Church of Satan, while Swift's surrogate father is a Merrill Lynch executive who owned a Christmas tree farm. I don't know, they're different, but they're the same. They're the same, I think.
The words are the same. If you take the pixels and just overlay the text, it just lines up perfectly.
There is that verse about, in like, is it Ezekiel or something, where they talk about making Christmas trees with all the ornaments, and like if you do that, you're like evil, because that's what the evil people do, is they cut down trees and they decorate them with tinsel. You know that one?
I think that I feel like I remember that there's like a vague thing that people take to mean Christmas trees. I don't know.
Yeah, it's super vague. It's supposed to be really like, I think you're supposed to be hanging something from the phallus of your Sumerian statue. But in Jeremiah, it says like, condemns you, Christmas trees, don't use it. Cutting down, oh, there it was, Isaiah 44, cutting down trees and then putting gold and tinsel on it. It's, whatever. There's a couple different verses. You should still do it because it's fun. But just know that it's Taylor Swift's whole plan. Anyway, if she were to run, like, okay, if she were to just say, I want Biden to win, that'd be possible. It'd be foolish, but it's possible. If she were to run for president, she literally could.
You see the irony of this, though, that she's not sharing her political views vocally, except some rare clips behind the scenes that didn't end up in the documentary, where we get to hear her share her own impassioned opinions. But it's like,
I wouldn't quite agree. Keep going. Sorry.
That's all I'm saying.
What's his name? The I'm sorry, Open Borders Foundation, Soros. She talked about how Soros purchased her music like 5 years ago. That was a big thing. She's like, I just found out that the Soros has bought my music, and I don't like that. And so, I mean, it's not a great impression, but the point is, she did say that George Soros and his family bought her music, and this is when she started re-recording all of her music, and all of her occultist fans have these big metal boxes that they can beat their boyfriends to death with if they wanted to. If they wanted to fill with vinyls of re-recordings of her music. I think that this is all, she bringing up Soros at a teenage, most of her fans like
wait.
acceptance speech.
I want one thing I want to respond to what you said there. No, I want one thing I want to address, and that's when you talk about her occultist fans. I thought to be an occultist meant that you kept things on the down low, like not just like strap it on and run around your neighborhood with it, right?
Yeah, that's a warlock. You're right. A warlock is a betrayer.
So it's just, if we're going to be using these terms, I don't think that they're that. I think that it's like difference between we're comparing her right to Anton. Is Anton LaVey's daughter? Is that correct? Is that his daughter?
Xena Shrek. Yeah, his daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like that. Compare that to like Thelema or whatever. Like Thelema has there couldn't be worlds apart. One is very Hollywood. Very like they'll release the record of the mess. Like you can. There's very little. I don't know, reservation. Like it's just kind of like it's very theatrical, showing off. Yeah, Thelema might be theatrical too, but for different reasons in different ways. Do you know what I mean?
Is Thelema different than isn't a Super Bowl ritual like musical event kind of like a Thelema ritual?
I think it's way more like a freaking like the satanic mass from LaVey's church than it is anything truly Thelemic. But like it's more like Wicca or something. I'm sorry,
it's more theatrical and less processed, less gestalt. Brittany says T Swift has not endorsed a presidential candidate yet. Yeah, I know, we're bringing this up. Biden is a Swiftie though. Yeah, Biden is he thinks he's whatever he's heard of from his. I don't want to go there. Stephen Kalen, does the USCBDC come before or after the Nasara Gesara? USCBDC. I don't know, obviously, because I don't think Nasara is ever really going to happen. But in terms of a digital economy, did I freeze? Oh dear, sorry, I just froze my computer for a second there. Yeah, and according to I think that we're really there already. We have paper notes that reflect a digital economy, isn't it? Aren't we already technically on a CBDC?
Somebody says are bad can anger to what we're saying. That's well said. Yeah, no, because Kenneth anger isn't necessarily. It's like that's its own Thelema thing there. Like yeah.
But I feel like those are more. That's more to my point where like if you're just recording it, then you can do the Gestalt process, and there really are processes going on. Anyway, Taylor Swift's not necessarily endorsed Biden. She very well could. But do you think it makes more sense for her to run for some sort of political thing, or is what?
Well, I want to say yes because I would vote for her unequivocally. But I also want to just point out on the CBDC thing that there's a good tie here. There's a sync here, and I hope it doesn't. I'm stressing it, but
if you say NFTs, I will slap you. No.
So the CBDC. You just mentioned, aren't we already there? And I guess I would make the argument, the short version of it is that not until everyone publicly acknowledges it, and until then, we all pretend we're in this paper system. But I would make a point on that and say that haven't we always had CBDC since the first instance of fractional reserve banking? The first time someone just wrote down, pretend there's 10 times as much in here as we say there is, and did the double line booking. As soon as that happened. And the analogy here is that the Taylor Swift AI travesty, right? Well, that's no different than someone that spent like 3 months with a fine point pencil and every color. And like you could do anything that's being generated by these AI machines. You could do that with traditional artwork, right? The only difference is how quickly and how convenient, and the fact that now there's this acknowledgement of like, yeah, well, you can also replace skill and you can replace all this human stuff with a computer, and the computer does the human stuff in a fraction of a second. And that's really, to me, it's like the same difference. It's like once everyone acknowledges that AI is maybe the same-ish or lives in the same area, the same way that people have to acknowledge, like, okay, CBDC, digital currency, I guess the paper money that we've been using for the last 100 years has no more or less value than the digital counterpart of it.
Well, you see that it makes it into a mandala that in a second it can all just go whoosh.
Did you mean to make a Travis?
Not and on a big scale, just like apocalyptically, but then also on an individual scale, if your fucking carbon footprint is too high and you can't pay for it, or who the fuck knows?
Swift, you know. Yeah, because she flies a lot. I didn't know if you meant Travis T. Like, was that Travis Taylor Swift?
Oh, God, I didn't mean it, but now I did.
Because it's a Travis T. I get it. I like it. I don't know if she's gonna run for president, just because running for president sucks. And
she'd be forced to fucking take a position on issues in a very direct way, repeatedly on a bunch of stuff. You know,
but so does AOC. She has. I think you're aiming it to look like she's made less political opinions than she has. Just talking about George Soros is a pretty big political opinion.
But doesn't this make her a better candidate if she doesn't want to be president?
That's the problem. She's never, and she's got her entire life has been controlled and isolated and segregated from us seeing it. She's separated from she's veiled, if you will. So that's what a politician needs, right?
But you do realize that the popular vote doesn't mean very much anymore.
Well, yeah, I'm just
I'm from California, so my vote doesn't mean shit, really. So
you have her perform at Bohemian Grove one year, and then bingo bango, she's on the ticket.
Yeah, or I mean, realistically, the Super Bowl thing is enough of that, because a superb owl. You've got this perfect ritual that is, it's in veil, it's in plain sight, depending on who you are. It's in out of sight, out of mind, or in mind, in sight. She's in a position where she could become not just popular with the plebeians, but she's already made Biden a Swiftie, as we've said.
They're making you choose between a soup or a bowl, and if you want both. Like, that's the problem. It's like they're like, you got to pick one. And you're like, how am I supposed to eat this soup without the bowl?
Sorry, I love the wordplay. Is the highest form of wit is wordplay. But also, imagine this, right? Imagine Taylor Swift doing the ultimate real world cremation of care ceremony, where she comes out, she says, "I'm running for president, and I've seen all your naughty AI stuff. Come at me, everyone. Just do whatever you want to do. Like, I'm completely transparent. I'm running for president. Make all the weird AI stuff you want about me. I fully embrace it." I feel like she would have the back of everyone on the country.
Did she even take issue with it, really, or was it just the fucking CNN
she's in a position
Fox, both of them?
She can now make this decision for the rest of society, at least for the next couple decades.
Maybe we might want to consider that in times past, when both CNN and Fox seem to have a serious problem with something, that somebody above has a problem for other reasons and other ways.
This is the thing. She says she considered legal action. It's completely possible that this is completely manufactured, but I think she's in on it. The point is, by telling people not to do it, she's getting more people to do it. And in the process, they're building up this system with the excuse that not our, peace be upon her, Muhammad Taylor Swift, not her. We have to save her. So we're going to create systems that can look for deep fakes, look for, but for Taylor Swift, we're going to look for pictures of Taylor Swift that have a boob in them. Yeah. But for Taylor Swift, like, the only reason that we'd ever really want this technology is for Taylor Swift, right? And so I find that to be really interesting and dangerous. On one hand, they're encouraging people to do it by saying not to, and then they're using it. They've been planning it. We showed you the Benz article that they're literally, when the government realizes a psyop, it would be perfect to use Taylor Swift. So it's these people don't have inspired new ideas. These are plans that have been set in motion for 5 years now, or 10 or 20.
Sure. And she just becomes an exploitable means to do what was already.
Unless she really is a brilliant sorceress. I mean, because I can't say she's not. I can't with confidence say she's not. I'm sorry.
Well, as you were describing that too, like, this is only for Taylor Swift. Don't worry, it's not gonna be used for anything. It reminds me, there was this episode of Silicon Valley where they're working on, like, hot dog, not a hot dog.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly where the link was, but they made this veiled reference, and I was like, dude, I know exactly what they're talking about, where everyone's thinking about the hot dogs, and it's like, this is gonna be used for military tech. Like, someone's gonna die because, like, they're gonna come up and it's gonna be like villager, not a villager, terrorist, not a terrorist. And there's a program from Northrop Grumman called C4ISR. It's called, like, Command and Conquer and Control or something. And it's essentially that, where they send these drones out into the world and they just, like, automatically detect, like, this is a bad guy, and all it does is it essentially like sends somebody a text, and it's like, you know, we need a human review, say yes or no, and they look at it and they're like, yes, and then the thing does the thing.
I can't remember for sure, but didn't she also come out publicly against Trump? Like, I think she said like she didn't like Trump.
Not as far as I know, not publicly. It was something that was a behind the scenes clip that was not used in a documentary but leaked. So she gave a strong opinion, and so that should be an indication that she's in a position where her handlers, or whatever you want to call it, this is what happens with these people who are that you know, that have that much power and influences. They got like, you know, she isn't allowed to go beyond a certain place. Like, you know, if not that she's not allowed, but she'll suffer repercussions if she does. And so yeah, there's like, who the fuck knows? That's a weird thing, man. When you're like, what are you gonna elect somebody based on that we like their music lyrics? Like,
I mean,
she's not sharing her political opinions hardly at all.
The most interested I've been is when she used the word autocracy. Like, wow, they taught her I mean, you think that this girl is basically a musically educated person, and they still had time to teach her political science terms like autocracy. I mean, there's more to this person than is leading the eye. But there's more to her.
I just want to say, unironically, David, yes, I would much rather vote on a presidential candidate based on their songwriting than any other metric that we've developed so far. That would, to me, that would speak deeper to me than any other metric that we've got.
You need to do Eurovision.
Well, if I was just,
I don't that'll calm you down.
Well, and I say this, I mean, this is not jokingly. I feel like the presidential election should follow the format of American Idol, where if you really want that person to vote, then you can call the 900 number 20 times if you want.
Right.
Eurovision works better because you would actually represent the country, or so it'd be the state. So once the state won, then you'd know, like, you'd have to have representatives of each state. This is the way to do it. Not American Idol, Eurovision. They already know how it's going to be. I can almost see it, like in the next 20 years, like all elections will be decided through a phone, through texting. Yeah, we're almost there.
I mean, I know it sounds silly, but it really
it sounds like Hunger Games.
The most logical conclusion to all this. Like, this is where we're headed at.
Yeah, Hunger Games is not a joke.
They've pretty much gotten it down it's almost down lock and key that the primaries are rigged. And so we have admittedly rigged primaries, making the election itself irrelevant. The election doesn't mean anything.
Are you in on this, David?
We all are. We're all in on it, whether or not we want to be or not, in a weird way, because we're participating, you know, in our.
Well, we are all one too. So
that's true. I mean, the DNC, they don't have to, as I understand it, use their their own primary votes to decide if they want to nominate a candidate. I don't know.
No, they're actually allowed to. They're allowed to rig it. They're a club. Yeah. Like, they are not. It's not a government organization. They can do what they want. They have a image that they want to project, and that's what. And so they've stated that in court. So that's completely admitted. And so you know,
go ahead.
No, that's it. Yeah.
What do you think about? Have you ever heard this quote from Thomas? Oh God, okay, I can't.
That's her in the Seinfeld apartment. She's supposed to be licking stamps. Keep going.
All right.
I think it's dangerous. Thomas Sowell. He has this quote about the Electoral College, and I'm gonna butcher and paraphrase it, but it's like, if you're out to sea and you're on a boat and the captain dies, do you want to take a vote with all the like it's a cruise ship? Do you want to take a vote from all the passengers on who gets to be the new captain, or do you only want to take votes from like the people in the engineering room that actually know what a captain needs to know? Because if you put it up to the boat, it's just going to be like whoever drank the most and had the most fun at the party last night, they elect that guy every time. So like the argument being that sometimes you need these elites, these secret
right, but that's not what they do, though. That's not what it is, though. So if it, like, theoretically, I agree with you 100%, but that's not what it is.
Okay,
so
fair point.
What the fuck? You know? But yeah, there's a lot of theoretics, you know, and like I can get down with that. But
this is like the Tide Pods weren't designed to be eaten. But here we are.
Yeah. I feel like we're headed towards a place though where you know, you will need both. You're going to need to have somebody who, I mean, this is why it's interesting that she knows words like autocracy and she pretends to be, you know, non-political, because that's exactly what you want. Someone who's able to put out just the correct, like, just specific messages, and then they can have a cabinet of all these people, right?
And it's
Well,
silly
make her
too.
RFK Jr.'s running mate. I'm down. You know, they haven't disclosed who that's going to be. It's going to be in the next 2 months. They disclose who that is. It should be perfect. You know, if we're
But
gonna
if she has the capital of like a small nation, so of course she's political. Like,
yeah,
how could you not?
Dude,
how could you be apolitical?
You know, fucking Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, members of Pink Floyd. You know, George Harrison produced Monty Python and the Holy Grail. When George Harrison was asked why did he put so much money into Python and the Holy Grail, he's like, because I want to watch it. Like, I want to watch that movie. Like, that sounds great. He's like, I know Monty Python doing the Holy Grail. That sounds, and King Arthur. Yeah, that sounds great. That's what I like to see more of. It's like people are like, that's what I would like. You know, like who do we want to see as president? Okay, I'm gonna.
Adam Krigler said on his tweet, and it got I think 150 or 200,000 likes. I mean, like, and then 14 million views, right? Including the original Daily Mail content. Taylor Swift could sway 2024 election. He says, if your choice of president is based on Taylor Swift's choice, you shouldn't be allowed to vote.
Right.
So, I mean,
does this exclude voting for Taylor Swift? I feel like he left that open.
Because it's true, like at a certain point where she's a billionaire and she's got reddish hair, you know, it could be orange woman good. It could be a whole other swing because we have a lot of people. But the thing is, that's what Trump did. So I can imagine as long as she plays their game and she supports their candidates and she continues to be, you know, the du jour prima donna. But prima donna du jour. But at a certain point, if she starts to say, I want to be my own person and make my own decisions, how far can she go? I mean, how big do you have to be before you're allowed to speak freely?
Yeah.
I mean, my 20.
How big do you have to be? The bigger you are, the harder it is. Sorry,
my fan fiction for 2024 is I want a Tay-Tay Hunter Biden prodigal son story arc, and that would be imagine that as the power couple running for president. A redeemed.
No,
Hunter
I mean,
Biden
I've already
Swift.
all the deep fakes of Deadpool and Taylor Swift. Anyway, okay, but there is a holy war coming on. Trump allies pledge holy war against Taylor Swift. So there's a group of people that are gonna. I mean, and this is gonna make anybody who goes against Taylor Swift look like old people, right?
Isn't that right? Polarizing. Oh,
yeah, it's polarizing. It's literally it's just literally polarizing. How is this not sorcery? This is amazing because nobody, I mean, instead of abortion or gay rights or interracial marriage or you know, what, Black Lives Matter, anything, Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is going to be the Miss America that divides the country in a lot of ways.
Because it's also a topic that has all of the passion and controversy, but none of the controversy. You know what I mean? Like you could actually argue about this at the water cooler, but if you argue about any of those other topics that you mentioned at the water cooler, you're out, buddy. Like that's an HR meeting. And right now, that's not an HR meeting to debate over Tay-Tay.
I don't know how long that'll last, though. I don't know. Pretty soon she'll be, you know, especially if she becomes president, it would be like Obama.
Right. She has to share some political opinions first, like meaning to.
Oh my God. It's so scary because but I don't know. Like, again, she's come out against autocracy. She's talked about the Open Borders Soros Foundation. She's talked about the elite. She's become one herself. It seems like she's intimating that she has and she's willing to bring up those ideas. It's not like, I just mean to say, it doesn't sound like she doesn't have those thoughts. It doesn't sound like she's just some vapid-headed pop star. It's just that she's really brilliant enough to keep her tongue bit.
I've talked about this on the show before when Britney shaved her head and then you had those people in front of her house that wouldn't let her parents get to her. And they were like, you have like these people in suits like trying to calm her down. And it's like, you get a little like, it's like the Valis thing. It's like where you have like, oh shit, there's like there's a crack in the shell of the appearance of whatever it is that we think is going on. So it's like they got people, you know, kind of looking at, yeah, you know what you said something that was true. It's like, how big do you have to get before you can just speak freely? Roger Waters big, a certain context where they're like, it's like why South Park could get away with so much because you're like, oh well, that's just South Park. It's like you have to have such a name for yourself that you can, you know, say the things that other people, if they were to say, it wouldn't work. You know what I mean? Like, something like that. Like, I don't agree with everything that Roger Waters says, but man, do I like the fact that he gets to fucking say it. Like, he believes it. He believes what he's saying. And to me, that's more important than when I read from somebody that they don't believe it. Even if they're wrong, I would rather they like think that they're right than just be purposely lying to like sell some fucking bullshit. You know.
Well, speaking of which, so Trump nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Right? I mean, so this is a weird week in a lot of ways. I feel like this is tied. So on one hand, you've got Trump nominated for the Peace Prize, while Biden is trying to get us, if you saw earlier, Biden was trying to get us into World War III with Iran, but then he sort of like, I want to say he backtracked, but really I think Congress told him no is what happened. And he's not really the commander in chief. You know, that's kind of how it goes.
Did you see the MSNBC anchor? I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but I think it was just recently. There's like, they're talking about Texas, and she's just like, there was like a hot mic, and she just like comes out and says, like, all matter of fact, she's like, oh great, he's gonna bring us into another fucking war. And they just like they were like talking about Texas even. Oh, there you got it. Yeah. This lady fucking dropped that. I was very entertained by those few seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, and MSNBC seems really weird to me because, like, at least the Fox will pretend to be Republican and the CNN pretends to be leftist, but MSNBC pretends to not have these opinions, which makes it that much more funny because they're constantly trying to make their opinions sound more objective, which is just like more pathetic. It's just so bad. I don't know. MSNBC brutal, but I like it when they make a mistake that just kind of reminds you who they really are. You know, that's fun.
I appreciate all of these different shows though, because it's almost like before this guy John Collier, he actually is the one that introduced the lines on the sides of the road, because at a certain point, all roads, it was just the asphalt, full stop. And then someone had this great idea, was like, hey, what if we put lines on the sides so you know where the edges are, and then even put one right in the middle, so then you could tell if you were crossing from one lane into the other lane. And people just like started saving lives over this. And I feel like that's kind of what these shows do. Like, they're saving lives. They're preventing people from inadvertently taking upon like one position that belongs to one side and then like adopting another position that belongs to the other side. Instead, like streamlining these parties so that like certain things exist at certain parties. It just prevents collisions from happening as often.
You make sure that there are constituents for both sides. It guarantees that they both will continue to exist.
There used to be fucking diplomacy, and like people recognized it when they saw it. They were like, oh, this person's meeting with this person. Well, you're bridging party lines and all this stuff. We've gotten to a point where things are so polarized that if somebody actually does old school diplomacy at all, people's heads explode. They're like, what the fuck is he doing? He's talking to Roger Stone. Why is he doing it? It's like, dude, that's how this works, man. You got to communicate. What are you live in a house and you won't fucking communicate with certain members of the family and you think you're going to be able to be a functional household? I'm sorry, you might have an issue with fucking Uncle Ed, but you know what? He's staying with us for a while and you got to fucking talk to him, you know.
But Uncle Ed touches me. All right, but Max Headroom, I think what we need really, and we're almost there, is a Max Headroom. We're almost to the point where AI news digestion can be put into perspective through some sort of an avatar that it'll filter all of the different news together. And that might be the best solution, because what we're realizing is that because of these lines and these over-designed highways, we have traffic jams and we're having people stuck in neighborhoods they can't move around. There's lack of mobility. Without access to resources or to ideas and services. I mean, this is not just about infrastructure anymore. This is about intelligence and civilization. So we need probably to access this data.
You've seen the Max Headroom show? The show that was made?
Okay. I grew up with this.
I don't know why I went to the Man Who Fell to Earth all of a sudden, but that's okay.
But the thing is that Max Headroom isn't just Max Headroom. Max Headroom represents something because of that incident where people fucking tapped into their cable network and were able to like have like a moment in time. They're probably so high on coke. Who the hell? It was the 80s, right?
The guy who hacked the cable station in Chicago.
Yeah, and like so, it's like that's like taking something into your own hands. It's like kind of like the people versus George Lucas or whatever. It's like, you know, this is ours, like kind of reclaiming something. And I think that's what the issue with the AI. It's not just an AI issue with Taylor Swift. It's the old issue just taken to another level. It's like the same fucking thing we've always been dealing with, where it's like, who owns this really? you know, because you want to be able to play with it. It's like why you remember that there was that Ninja Tune group, Cold Cut, and Cold Cut. The members of Cold Cut produced, I think, was one of, if not the first, like sampling program that like anybody could use. That was like totally like open source kind of deal, where it's like you could take samples from anything and you could play with it and incorporate it. Like that's what they were encouraging. Like they came out with an album like Let Us Play, and it was just this whole kind of statement on like, and obviously this is before I believe this is before Biz Markie got the book thrown at him and became kind of like the fucking scapegoat along with a few others for like sampling. 80s? Yeah, but early 90s, it got worse. So like really? This is the thing. I
didn't even know Ninja Tune was that old.
Yeah, so you started out with you had cassette tape, 8-track that they had a mixing thing, and then they started doing a mini disc one in like 88 or something like that. And then in the 90s, there was a bunch of push against it because in Australia there was a copyright issue with the Avalanches, because the Avalanches, they got basically the solution was Avalanches got purchased by Sony Records, and that was, you know, but a lot of the, you know, a lot of the law came down to in the 90s. They're just like, all right, well, if you were to play this, you get someone else to play that jingle from that song and you record that, that's okay. But if you use the original recording, that we have DMCA Copyright Act law about that. And so it really destroyed a lot of kinds of like sampling music that existed, while also inspiring people to make open samples of their own. And it's really cool, the kind of music that exists because of it. But we would have had a completely different civilization, because people would have said, oh yeah, I lived this life, I saw these things, here is my art about it. And now that's literally illegal. You cannot talk about the things you've experienced, because half of the things you experience with a screen over your eye. Oh God, wait till next year, when literally they can just block out what you know, you don't have DRM to see this blacked out while you're driving. You know, that could happen. It will.
Yeah.
Well, if you didn't pay for it, you shouldn't be able to see it. I don't know what kind of communist moocher you guys are, but that's just how it should work.
I feel like everything you do is pay. You know, you're constantly just you're taxing your carbon all day long. What about the Eric Stoltz Back to the Future? Can we just finish this movie? Because I know how it goes. I know exactly what this movie is. It's a full-on different movie, and we've talked about it a little bit, but I want to go into a little more detail about like how different this movie is. I'm not saying would be. I'm saying is, because I strongly believe that there's an edit. I know that they have the footage. I know they filmed it.
Well, you've seen some of it, right? I've watched a bunch of that footage of Eric Stoltz in Back to the Future.
But I believe that there literally is a edited film that exists that is the full 90 some odd minute movie and what happens in it. And I think it's very dark, and I think it's really important. And Eric Stoltz, a method actor, he always talked about how he thought it was a crisis, because by the time he gets home, he's never going to live that youth. Everyone else is improved, but he still grew up with that horrible life, right? And so it's basically about a guy who loses his whole reality. And originally it was going to be, you know, there was a refrigerator, like a lead-lined refrigerator, which he would go through his refrigerator instead of a time machine. That's how he got to the past. So it was going to be very different. And then it was going to be, originally the doctor was supposed to be Jeff Goldblum. Can you imagine Jeff Goldblum from The Fly as your doc? Like, that would be a whole
he was so young at the time too.
It would have been amazing. He's like got this young weird friend. It's definitely would have added to the Rick and Morty homoeroticism of Back to the Future, I'll tell you. But if you had Jeff Goldblum as your doctor, and he's this kind of crazy guy, and they're figuring this stuff out, the way that the movie, I don't want to give away everything about it, because we probably will literally make this at this point, but it ends where the world is Metropolis. Like, it isn't our fixed world. It's the way the world should be. Like, he comes outside and there's all of Doc's inventions in 1985, or flying cars, you know, airships, giant towers, free energy. So literally the movie ends with Metropolis happening. I mean, I think that's really interesting that there's such a completely different version of Back to the Future, the original plan. But again, like, they shot 6 weeks of it. They have all the footage of it. What do you think about that? Do you think it was actually an accident that they hired Eric Stoltz and that they had to replace him? Or do you think this was all part of making that secret movie just so they could watch it and not let us see?
Well, that's a good series of questions there, Andreas. I don't necessarily have the answers to. I know
Tell me
that
about your feelings, David.
I know that there's a couple movies that I think that there's been that were not made for the public, but were made for private screenings. And of those movies, I think that Phantasmagoria is one of them. It's a Marilyn Manson movie with Tilda Swinton. So like I think that movie was finished and produced, and he said he couldn't do it because of copyright issues. It's Alice in fucking Wonderland. What are you talking about? That is public domain. Like so.
He probably used Disney's style outfits or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know about you. Might have to type in film. This is for some game, but there's a Phantasmagoria film.
That's an awesome game, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I remember when he was working on this, we saw a bunch of footage about it, and then all of a sudden,
right. So he plays Lewis Carroll. I don't know if this movie was ever intended for the public. Like what is in it? There could be, kind of because there's this kind of tapestry mythology that exists in Hollywood, and like things like this could connect things. The other one that's actually oddly related in a weird way is the Dark Crystal, because before Disney bought the Jim Henson Company, there was this whole buildup for what was to be a prequel of the Dark Crystal. I speculate. I don't know this one. I'm more certain of Phantasmagoria, but with this one, I think it's very possible that prequel was made, and that prequel is actually the sequel to what became the Netflix series later on, because there was an IMDb page for an upcoming Dark Crystal, and then as soon as Disney bought the Jim Henson thing, it disappeared. And then flash forward a few years later, you had the Age of Resistance Dark Crystal. But if you know how that ends, you're like, wait, we know it from both sides of the sandwich stories. There's a Holocaust here somewhere. Where is there? And so I think it was a fucking Dark Crystal Holocaust film that wasn't intended for the public, that they fucking got to get like fucking people like I was saying about George Harrison. Like he's like, why did you fund it? He's like, because I wanted to see it. Like I think that there's fucking people who are like, I want to see that. And
that makes sense because Jim Henson had to buy it back from them because they were going bankrupt, and they're just like, yeah, just take it. Oh,
is that what happened? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. So you hear what? Yeah, I don't know, man.
They wanted to shelve the movie, and he's like, let me just buy it from you. And they're like, that would be great because when we can look like we had nothing to do with this. Essentially, we accidentally had this guy make this thing, and it's his fault, and we didn't make it in our studio. So
I've got a really good example of a movie that was not made for the masses, and coincidentally I was just reviewing. I just watched the first half of this movie.
Are you talking about the Bohemian Grove one?
It's the Bohemian Grove one. It's called Teddy Bear's Picnic. Yeah. That one, dude, and this is the first time that I've started actually watching it earnestly and paying attention. There's no way, there's no possible way this movie was made for anybody that wasn't either in the Grove or was like obsessed with the Grove. There are so many inside little jokes and nods to things that it's so freaking specific, man. Like,
hey, I should talk to you about this later, but can I get that from you? I've been trying to.
You're gonna get that? Can I get that from you?
Yeah. And another one too. This might be cheating because it's kind of like an art installation, but Matthew Barney's Cremaster Cycle.
Yeah, the Cremaster Cycle,
like one of those things that was not made for the public.
Oh, Cremaster Cycle was made for like art museums. One of my favorite, actually, the Cremaster Cycle. And you know the story, right? Like he married Bjork, used up all of her money to make this thing, and then divorced her. Like he's the worst.
Now I love this even more than I already did.
He's everything at once. Yeah. The lead line refrigerator.
So this is the guy. He produces films that the films are meant to be almost like art pieces, where it's like they're not distributed. You have to, if you want it, you got to pay however much money to go to the screening.
You got to go. You got to go to the art museum and you got to see it. It's usually got like 9 projections going simultaneously. Like I think it was kind of similar to your thing where you've got 6 movies at one screen, but you've got 6 projections filling up the MoMA. It's pretty fantastic.
What an angle! You know, that guy Michael Allen does something similar in Digital Debris. Digital Debris in East LA. He's got all these screens all around the space. It's just theater space, but just with tons of screens. It's fucking brilliant.
Hey kids, if you're interested in doing digital debris style, please download Module with the number 8. That's the software that can do pretty good projection mapping. Works really well. You can literally have with 4 projectors or 1 projector, and you can hit every wall or everything you want.
I have 4 projectors, literally.
Yeah, get yourself on Modulate.
Okay, maybe the next time I show up here, I'll have some. The only reason I don't have 4 going is because it gets really hot. I never considered how hot projectors get when you've got a room full of them.
Yeah, no, I used to keep warm just with projectors. 100 Years is a Malkovich movie that was directed by Robert Rodriguez. It was shown, I believe, once to like an audience of less than 90 people in Cannes in France, and then it will not be seen again out of that time capsule until 2112 or whatever, 100 years after it was released.
That's a dick move.
Yeah, but he's so rich and he has like a villa in Croatia and he knows the Pope. I don't blame him.
Do you think it's any good?
The villa? Yeah.
No,
even the movie? I don't care. I don't know. Maybe.
He was good in Louis C.K.'s movie, I Love You, Daddy.
I love any Malkovich movie. It's sad but true.
Ooh. I can't think of a time that I've seen John Malkovich in a movie when he didn't elevate it.
Yeah.
Dude, have you seen I Love You, Daddy? You guys seen I Love You, Daddy?
I Love You, Daddy.
The Louis C.K. movie?
I'm pretty sure I have. Was it black and white?
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
I uploaded it to Twitter at one point.
I do like it. I like Louis C.K. He's one of my favorite Mexicans. I feel like he does a good job. It's a good movie. Let's see, where were we at a second ago? I was just sorry. We had like 30 requests for Box Saga. It's time. Here it is.
That works.
See, the pantsuit, I feel like she's probably more upset about this pantsuit than the naked pictures. Hey. Hi. Good to see you. Box Saga. Box Saga. Look at the comments here. Does wrong order lead to U.S. funding own civil war? Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like that's how it works. Civil war is what those lanes in the highway. Lead line fridge. Refer to nuclear waste storage.
Dude, the Indiana Jones movie when he hides.
I was thinking about it.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like I was thinking of that yesterday, actually, for some reason.
So it all comes. Almost done. Saga. Okay. So in the DuckTales, Indiana Jones, the original DuckTales 1950s comic book is where the lead-lined refrigerator comes from, and where the ball chasing him comes from, and where the statue swapping comes from. If I can do like Indiana Jones, DuckTales comic, something like that. You could 1955, right? 1950s. How about this? History stole Indiana Jones crack. It's so hard to find now all of a sudden.
Bing's hurting you in this case.
Oh gosh, all right.
Oh yeah, that is what it is.
DuckTales, Indiana
This
Jones.
is not an endorsement of Google. It's just it
works. All right. But yeah, so they couldn't afford to do the nuclear scene in the first Indiana Jones. And then in Back to the Future, they wanted to do the lead-lined refrigerator for the first scene, but they couldn't afford to do that. And they realized that the clock tower and time, and they're like, okay, well, we have the set. So what can we do? We can use that. But all of it comes from the DuckTales comic book. And so I find it interesting that they're constantly pushing this narrative. This particular comic book has so much in it, right? It has the invention of carbonized methylene gas, like the actual chemical formula, 30 years before any chemist actually discovered that it was in a DuckTales comic book or anyone had ever seen it before. It has the swapping of the statue from Indiana Jones. It has Back to the Future thing. It even has the memento issue, right? There's DuckTales.
It also has 9/11 like 100 times.
It also has Desmoulins, the group that the three Huey, Dewey, and Louie were in. They're in like this little Cub Scout kind of group, but if you look at some of the actual rituals and some of the handbooks that they mention in it, it's pretty much nods to Desmoulins.
What's the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio about dreams?
Inception?
Yeah, Inception. Inception is completely from a 2004 Uncle Scrooge comic book. The entire plot from Inception is literally they're trying to rob Scrooge McDuck and the Beagle Boys, put a dream machine over his head, and whenever he realizes they're in his head, he starts to wake up and starts freaking out. I can't quite. There you go. Well, let me even just show you the biggest picture. But yeah, see, they come in, they put the thing over his head, and then he starts killing them in the dreams. It's literally everything from Inception is from a DuckTales comic. So it's weird. All of these movies and actual organic chemistry is invented by DuckTales. Sorry, Thomas, you were going to say something, but I cut you off.
All hail the great duck is all I was going to say.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, there's something to that idea that everything is preordained, though, because a lot of people are like, oh, man, this movie feels so real. They must have just made this up. This line must have just been improvised or something. And it's like 99, more and more and more, never the case. It's almost always planned. And when you find out how far back it blows your mind, because it's not just that they came up with this Pixar movie. They were at a table and they came up with every Pixar movie in one lunch, and it's just for 20 years they're only making those movies. Like, what is this? This is weirder than any conspiracy I've ever heard of. It's just how they make these
movies. Also, that sounds crazy, but that's how Disney actually operated. Like, so many of the Disney movies that came out, if you look at it, like, they purchased the rights and they started working on some of those for like 20, 30, 40 plus years. So it's not outlandish that they're still working through a backlog that someone wrote up 20 years ago.
Right. There's also
the public to be ready for it. Yeah.
There's so much of it. So and it's huge still. Like DuckTales in Sweden is huge. It's like one of the and you'll see it in almost every freaking store you go into. There'll be like a little stand with the new DuckTales. So in Swedish. And so point is they continually just come out with so much material and so much ideas. It's like what Archie was, but it's still happening in Scandinavia and I don't know where else. But some of the more far out predictive stuff, particularly in regard to 9/11, you'll find in the European version of DuckTales that we don't even have in the US, like the towers being destroyed with the bank, they're with a plane, they got the, if I remember correctly, or maybe it's a helicopter, they got the Scrooge's money vault hanging from the copter, and it breaks apart the two towers or whatever, and it's shit like that. And it's also that it's the cube, which is reminiscent of the sphere that was modeled to be the guy who designed the towers designed the sphere that was the art piece that was between the two towers down below. I don't know, you're probably familiar. So the Wikipedia actually changed for that. It used to say, and I actually have a screenshot of the original somewhere in my computer. I was looking at it not that long ago, that Wikipedia used to say that, in quotes, that the guy who designed the two towers had designed this art project to be a replication of the Kaaba in Mecca. And that when it turned once every 24 hours, it was to symbolize the people who had made the pilgrimage encircling the Kaaba. And so to then put that between the towers as symbols of Yakin and Boaz is just so that's off the charts direct symbolism stuff. So I don't know, man, it's weird. Oh, you're muted.
I think that the DuckTales comic is the most popular comic in the world, and for a while it definitely was, more in Japan and across Europe, and I think America until the 50s. And then I think in the Disney had fights with DC in the 50s, and then they kind of let it go. Marvel emerged in the 60s, and I think there hasn't been as much of an American child comic. Kids were being pushed into bigger. Do you agree, Thomas? What do you think of that?
I do. I something random came up this week that I hadn't heard before last week, that Roald Dahl, James and the Giant Peach, and Coraline, I think a whole number of them, he actually got his start first as an intelligence officer, like many children's book authors do, believe it or not. But the first where he actually got his in was that he wrote about he was a book called Gremlins. And it was a nod to, I guess, he worked on aircrafts, and I think he crashed. And it was that Twilight Zone episode, right? But this is before Twilight Zone episode was even out. And he writes this book called The Gremlins, and Walt Disney buys this thing up. And they just recently came out a few years ago with a comic book series. But this was supposed to end up becoming a movie. But anyways, that was just tangentially related to what we were just talking about.
Yeah, I really like this book too, because it's it has to do with literally what pilots were experiencing, which is it felt like there was something on the wing of the plane pulling apart the plane itself. and in the episode they make it seem like, oh, this is just completely logical, you know, that there's
and his book breaks
turbulence.
down like a whole class system of these gremlins. That there's the male gremlins are the ones that do like the nasty Twilight Zone stuff. Then you've got female gremlins, which are more benign, and then you have baby gremlins, and they all have different names, and they all have different roles.
Wait. This doesn't make any sense, though, because wasn't it a Bugs Bunny episode that had these gremlins? Or they looked a little different. They're super similar. You know the Bugs Bunny episode with the gremlins where he's like, they show it in the movie Gremlins, and I think 1 and 2, where he's like, could that have been was that a gremlin?
Predate, unless that was pre-World War II.
They're kind of like these. Are these aliens? Yeah, they are gremlins. Dang, dude, and it looks just like
what year is
They're
this?
in the same color outfits almost.
What year is this?
I don't know. Let's see.
Because this is Gremlins is pre-World War II, because Gremlins gets Roald Dahl's foot in the door. Right. He becomes buddy with Eleanor Roosevelt, and 43. Eleanor Roosevelt ends up inviting him to like her secret cottage and like hanging out with her. And he basically was a spy for UK trying to get the US to enter World War II. And I would make a very strong argument, if this were a different show, that Roald Dahl might be directly responsible for getting the US in the World War II, or at least being a strong catalyst, because he had Eleanor Roosevelt's ear, and Eleanor Roosevelt had FDR's ear. So
I think the idea that the United States was not going to get involved with any war that they could get the public to accept is
right. Like, but if it's the guy that wrote James and the Giant Peach that got us there, it can't be as bad as that you originally were thinking.
It might not be Pearl Harbor bad. You got to remember, it is Pearl Harbor bad. And Roosevelt was the nephew of another Roosevelt who had taken over the Philippines, right? And so it's in his blood and in his ideology to conquer in the name of the new empire, which is what had formed in the post-Monrovian period. I agree that there was a large anti-war sentiment in the United States populace. Most citizens didn't want us to go to war after World War I, especially. But even in World War I, you know, that there. And again, gremlins were mentioned in World War I because there were wooden planes and they had higher turbulence. There were more problems. So gremlins is something also from, if you're alone in the sky and there's no turbulence, there's a psychological response that you start to imagine things happening as well, because you're just in this sort of vertigo space and clouds.
Well, it was also that we didn't want to take the credit for things malfunctioning on our planes. If there was anything other than you were attacked, why did you have so it's like this idea, it's like there's Minoc chewing on the power cables down there. It was like they had to kind of have a place to put the blame if something didn't work out. It was the fucking gremlins, man. It wasn't us.
Those were werewolves came from. Like, you don't want to blame your neighbor for killing your chickens in the middle of the night, so you're like, oh, there must be werewolves out there. It was
totally. Oh, your cows are being mutilated. Aliens. I'm sorry, it wasn't me in the middle of the night.
Thomas, didn't you did an episode, was it today or recently, with Rife, right? Didn't you do something?
Yeah, so I pre-recorded it, but I went through the whole process of setting up the Rife machine, beginning to end. We kind of did like a tutorial-esque video, and I'm really excited about it, because now I already told he was like, I don't know if I would try that, but I'm gonna hook it up to a spirit box. I'm gonna hook it up to some of my audio equipment, maybe try and make some music with it. I'm gonna be trying to hook it up with like some ferrofluid just to see what the hell happens. He said he hasn't done any of that yet. So I'm like, I'll be the guy that does all the Rife experiments.
Oh, man, I hope you're safe. Well, so do you feel like did you try anything with it yet? Like just
I did it live, and so I don't know. I mean, I'm a big believer in placebo effect and all that, and I feel like this is maybe placebo effect, because even when I mentioned it to Matt, he's good at what he does. Like, he won't be like, yeah, that this thing actually does this thing. It's like, hey, if it helps you. But I got giddy, bro. I felt like I took a hit of nitrous at some point when we were running it at, I can't remember the exact hertz, but we started at 30 to calibrate it. And I was like, okay, I can hear him moving around. I see the little, magnet thing jiggling around. That's cool. And then he's like, I think it was like 95 hertz. And they're like, put it at 95 for like abdominal pain or something. And I put it on there, and I swear within like 5 seconds, like I'm just smiling. Like I just took like my first hit off of a blunt in 20 years or something. But
that's good. That sounds good.
And I was asking him, like, do people report just like feelings of elation when this thing is on, just like spontaneously? And I couldn't pin him down on an answer over that, but I mean, and I can't tell if it was a placebo or not yet.
So I mean, do you think though that do you think there could be both? I mean, obviously on one hand you want it to feel good, so that can help it feel good in a good direction, but it is energy. Do you feel like you've got electricity flowing through you, or how does it work? Are you feeling the electricity, or is it just
you can I felt it, I could hear it. I mean, it was causing a little bit of interference with my mic. Like I could almost like hear the buildup
EMFs?
of what was happening. And then what was even crazier is that I didn't even mention this because it was hard to show it on, but I had this little calibration magnet, and I had it off to the side. I like moved it away because it kept making noise and I didn't want the mic to pick it up. And after I moved it away, it kept doing the little pattern just in like a very minor version of the same little like Rife pattern it was making. It blew my mind, man.
So do you think that like a phone could be, I mean, 'cause if you put a phone next to electronics, it makes all these noises. Do you think you could make your phone make Rife patterns, or does it have to be this big coil?
Well, he explains he's got a little miniature version of it, and he said it's the
Mhm.
difference between riding a moped and like a Harley, essentially. Like they'll
Okay.
both get you there. One might take a little bit longer than the other one, but it's the same. And then he was describing too about how the Rife coils are different than some of the other competitors in the market that use like glass tubes. Some of them you actually have to touch. It's way cheaper if you make direct contact, and the frequency, I guess, transfers like physically versus having this big EMF. So like, yeah, the coils, as you described it, makes it so it's like truly wireless in a way that you don't have to have like e-meters in your hands, essentially.
Oh, all right. That sounds like an interesting thing. I want to look into it more. David, William has played with it. Have you guys played with it much in a while?
When we got it, we were trying to figure it out. So I'm excited to watch your video because
Yeah.
we hooked it up, we did the thing, but we couldn't tell what there was no indication because we could get sound out of the phone, but how do we know that what is it doing exactly? So I'm looking forward to watching whatever it is that you produce because I
Yeah,
might have some
all you
questions
need
answered.
is after you hook it up, all you need is a sound source that produces a frequency. So like it comes with like a little app, and you can download this one called like
Right, we
Z-Wave.
did it. We did it. It's just I couldn't. When you're looking at the device, you're like, I don't know what would be because would I not get the same sound from my phone in the first place? So I was trying to wrap my head around it. So
Okay.
I don't
So in
know.
the
I
audience,
don't know what it's doing exactly.
total tangent. KB said that Darkwing Duck was their excrement as a kid. I believe they mean like their favorite show. Disneyland annual passport. So I'm friends, and you've seen the episode with Tad Stones where we talk about Darkwing Duck. He posted recently on Facebook and his personal life that he likes going to Disneyland, of course. But the problem is, even though if you work for Disneyland and you make Darkwing Duck, you get to go for life whenever you want, right? That's what it should be. The problem is Darkwing Duck is so, I'm going to say, antiquated that these kids who were born today who work at Disneyland have no idea what Donald Duck is, let alone Darkwing Duck, let alone, I mean, they might have seen Donald Duck walking around, but they can't. If you say I made Darkwing Duck for the Disney Channel, they might not even know what the Disney Channel is. Like, is that like the old Disney Plus? So he goes there and he doesn't have, this is before the passport photo systems existed. He spends like 20 minutes every time trying to get into Disneyland because nobody knows who he is, which is just, is that not the saddest thing you've ever heard?
That's pretty sad. Yeah, it's not the saddest, but it's up there.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, fair enough.
It's
But at the end of the day, it's amazing because
Hmm.
it gives him more cachet because it's like, wow, like this makes him more legitimate. If like Disney is kind of almost separated their energies from this guy, does that make him more awesome? I feel like it does. That's my opinion.
Well, what does that say about Uncle Remus then?
That's the most legit. That's the truth. Like I feel like that's one of the, we made an episode about this in the past, but such a sad story that the most inclusive show that forced these segregated theaters to have a black actor walk in, even to do, in Georgia, like they said, we're not going to go to the premiere if he's not allowed to be at the premiere. I think it's really amazing. And the fact that the movie is not just written about white problems with black actors, but they're using African mythology, they're using African American reinterpretations of that Akan mythology, and showing you that there is a history, there is a culture, this is a civilization, it's existed longer than it's been nomadic in America and been diaspored to America. The African culture is very ancient. It's not just Egypt. I mean, there's just so many answers that you can find in the Song of the South that are positive and uplifting and help people relate with each other. And again, the saddest thing about it is it's like, this is Uncle Remus. It's a conquered people. You're looking at the post-war time, and he's supposed to be free. Well, how free are black people after the Civil War? Let's be honest. And even into the 1940s, when this movie is made, into the 1970s, into now.
When was it made? It was made in the what?
40s,
mid 40s.
I want to say 43. Let me just find out. I'm going to be wrong. Let's find out. 1946. Okay, 1946. So still, I think he was probably working on it before the war ended. But the point is, it was out in 46. And you've got an entire group of people into the 70s. You can get the song of this. I used to play to Plants Growing, the Song of the South record, and they turned out funnier and happier. You know what I mean? Than if they were listening to new metal, you know, like that was the thing. Everyone else wanted these big dubstep new metal buds, and I don't think that's the way to go. But
well, and in I don't know if it was in Land too, but in Disney World, Splash Mountain, which was the Uncle Remus ride, essentially, that gets replaced by the Frog Princess, which is also like a basically like a black version of a Disney movie. So they still they passed the torch on, so they didn't kick black people. Did they though? It wasn't like an Aunt Jemima situation.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it's like the opposite. So like, wait, this is the problem. So like the Song of the South, like I just made the contrasting point, is not a white movie with black characters, right? And this is important to me because if you watch sitcoms, you'll notice this a lot, where you have a family that's black or Italian or Spanish or Korean, but they're really all written by one writing team, which are not any of those things. And it's really obvious that they're just sort of exploiting the demographic, right? This is
maybe, but doesn't this solve racism by making a movie about black people with white people problems? Like,
dude, have you seen the Muppets version of the Princess and the Frog?
No.
Yeah.
Sounds like it sounds a little dirty, but I mean, I'm curious. When was this made? It's 76 or something? Ooh, is it 1971, 76 one? This one?
Yeah, I highly recommend it.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to just make sure everyone finds their way to the Tales from Muppetland, the Frog Prince, 1971. I don't know. It's a 50-minute thing, so I don't think we're going to do a reaction to it right now. But can you tell us a little bit about it?
Roll up our sleeves and let's just power through it. Come on.
I just want to say with the Princess and the Frog, with the difference is, like, it's not about a common mythology. It's all about an American girl who happens to be black for the point of exploiting that audience, and that's not good.
What's more American than that, though?
That's true. It's very American, but I don't think American is the goal. I'll be honest. I think the goal should be phenomenological diversity. The diversity was I like the diversity goal. I like the idea of showing that America is a mixing pot, not a melting pot that's burning off impurities. I think this is where we get really close to fascism through collectivist homogeny.
It's the new psychedelic fascism that Kubrick talked about. Shit. I thought it was going to be like a Clockwork Orange, but this is what it is. Okay, that makes sense.
With the Muppets Princess, tell me more. What was what sticks out to you about the Muppet Princess?
Oh, there's like it's been a while, but there's like a staff that's like, there's some secret that something needs to break on the staff, and the person keeps on trying to say it, but they have like a speech impediment, and so no one understands it right, and then they realize what they were really trying to say, and then they break the thing, and then it's like there's a spell, and the spell gets broken, but the spell was being kept in place because people couldn't understand somebody with a speech impediment. That's vaguely how I remember it, but yeah.
Well, that's key for another. Let's shift for a second then, because what I've been thinking about this week a lot, besides Taylor Swift, is the difference between a secret and a mystery. And so there's a lot of people will tell you, they're like, oh, these are secrets. Like Masons will talk about secrets. I'm sorry either. And then also like Mormons will talk about secret. LDS are all about like, hey, we're not supposed to.
True.
It's Scientology. I mean, granted, we have all of these videos of it that people have put out there, but we're supposed to not acknowledge them. And then if someone comes and talks to you about it, you're supposed to not talk to them unless they know about the thing already. So the question is it really a secret, or is it a mystery? It's something you don't understand and you can't. It's like the difference between saying God says you're not allowed to do this and it's physically freaking impossible. One's breaking the speed barrier of the speed of light. You can't understand this. It's not possible to understand. It's a mystery. Versus you're not allowed to you're not allowed to talk about this, even though you get to understand it. I feel like that tricks people into thinking they have more understanding than they do.
I think there's a little bit of both here, and the best analogy, which is a horrible analogy, but the best one that I can give is like the way that you're not supposed to divulge the secrets of Freemasonry, at least, It's the same way that you're not supposed, and spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen The Sixth Sense, but it's the same way that you're not supposed to walk into The Sixth Sense, and as the movie starts, you get up and you go, he's dead already. You know what I mean? Like, in my mind, that's
I love my dad. I love my dad's a brilliant man because he did that. That's literally not a metaphor. He did that. So I always respected him.
I did that in Scream when I was a high schooler. Just I'm not proud of it, but for some reason it felt fun the second the actual murders on the screen to be like, that's the guy, and then we just left.
My dad wasn't like aware from like reading about it. We went to see the movie and they were building it up, and for a week they're like, this movie's so important, and we see it, and then like 3-4 minutes into it, he's like, he's already dead. Let's go. Because he was so sick of it. And my brother was like 8 and I was like 10, and we're like, he's not wrong. And later on watching the movie at home, because we did leave, he was right. So I don't know. The point is, why should he not tell people that? Why should people? What benefit does ignorance give people? Bliss? How dare you? Why do you deserve bliss?
Because that moment when, I guess, when the normies were like, oh my God, he's been dead the whole time, in a very small microcosm way, like that's kind of a trauma, and it's sort of like this trauma-based programming of, like, maybe a better phrase would be like an NLP anchor. Like, you get NLP anchored at that moment when you get that big twist ending, and if you know that's coming, then the anchor doesn't have the same effect.
The answer to this can be found in a classic Kubrick quote where he talks about, like, why not just explain it directly, and he says, because that only goes about half an inch. You want to get people to a place where they realize and discover it on their own, so the thrill of discovery actually cuts through to the heart. So there's this idea that insight isn't something that can necessarily be given through knowledge. So, like, if you're trying to impart something, so if what you're talking about, because you're talking about Freemasonry and stuff, you're talking about the Hierophantic task. Their task is to get people to have a genuine insight, because you can tell them all the information you want to, and they might build a real knowledge base, but that knowledge base is nothing compared to that lightning flash that can happen when something is registers.
I've heard like a really, like, I guess like a dumbed down version of this, but man, it's the exact same argument. When I was at Disney, we were doing video games. We had this guy come in, was this whole thing, Jesse Schnell, I think it is. He wrote the art of game design, but he made this claim that stood to me. He's like, people like to feel smart. So, like, sometimes you, like, even if it's really obvious, if you make it just a little bit less obvious so that the person playing it thinks that they figured out. Of course they didn't figure it out. Like, it's like it was made for you to figure this out, but make a person feel like the only solved this problem because of how smart they are, and you give them that like little boost.
Yeah, that's not manipulation at all.
Units.
Yeah, and also sell units, get you to move up in the ranks, keep contributing. There's a lot of reasons why I feel like Donnie Darko was a better deal, because when Donnie Darko is like, hey, you guys see this movie, it's freaking weird. And like, what's it about? I don't know. It's like, he's a dead kid. He's not dead. I don't know. And like, it doesn't matter how much you try to explain.
You can't give it away, right? Like, if you tried to ruin Donnie Darko,
you can't spoil Donnie Darko. It's so true.
Right.
Yeah, any movie that has spoilers in it is a poor movie. It's a spoiled movie, because by the time I'm through it, I'm not.
Maybe. But like, it's also the context of the times and the development of film, because when Alfred Hitchcock had his main character get killed halfway through it with Psycho, like, you didn't want to know that ahead of time just for the entertainment value. We could just be talking about, we don't need to go to some grandiose, like, talking to what we were saying about the difference between Sode and A Secret, but
granted, like with Psycho again, maybe like, I guess I'm again the because my dad, like, when Lost came out, my dad was like, what's this show? I was like, I don't know, I think they're all dead on an island, like the first episode. So with Psycho, he's like, I was like, I want to watch this movie, Psycho. I was like 9 years old, and he's like, okay, because it's my dad and I can do whatever I want. And so he gets me Psycho, and I'm watching it. He's like, yeah, that movie's weird. It's all right, but like, it's cool because Kubrick, he was from Santa Cruz. He lived here, and he liked to freak people out. Like, he's not like, it's kind of like 12 Monkeys. You can't expect everything good to happen, and like, people die. And the thing is, by the time I saw it, I was so anticipating that it was going to be so much worse than it was, that when it wasn't, I'm prepared for a lot more, I think, because I'm not shocked by the. Like, I'm not, because this is what you're saying. People should be blindfolded, wandering through a field filled with bear traps. I don't like that. I'm not a fan.
No, I think that's the same analogy. I just want one good movie that's an example of this. Is I saw Dusk Till Dawn, going in completely blind. I wasn't even smart enough to realize the title kind of gave it away. But when the movie switched from, I guess, like a bank robber kidnap movie into a vampire movie, spoiler alert, it blew my mind. And I still think to this day, like, I'm so happy that I had that. Like, I was by myself watching, and I was just like no one else is there. I'm like, is anyone else?
You know what I thought was better than From Dusk Till Dawn was the making of From Dusk Till Dawn. That was actually a pretty good documentary.
I didn't even know that existed. I have to look at that. But I think it's a good example of, like, that's a bear trap that I liked walking into.
Yeah, I feel like you can emotionally like it, and then you want to trick your kids into it too. You're like, look, we'll put on a scary movie because I want to see my son go be scared when I was scared as a boy. I think people do that a lot. I mean, I can see how there's benefits to fear and there's benefits to surprise and everything else like that. But I don't know. I also remember one time I used to go to the haunted mansion at the Santa Cruz Boardwalk when I was like too young, and I'd wear big shoes because I was just tall enough. You know, and you don't have to be that old to be in that. I think you'd be like 6. So I must have been 4 or 5, you know? So I'm going through the thing and I'm like, this is horrifying. There's people eating each other's.
It was really scary. I went very young age too,
far scarier than it was in the 90s or it got more and more safe.
Totally.
But I remember going later when I was 10, like 5 years later, with my mom's friend's daughter and her father. And he's like, we're going to go to the boardwalk. Cool. And then we're walking by the haunted mansion. I'm like, oh, that's the haunted. We probably shouldn't go in there because I hadn't been there since the time it freaked me out. Like, no, we're going to go see my friends. We're going to see my friend. The father says we're going to see his friends. And we go in and he's like, yeah, this is all my friends from when I used to live in Santa Cruz. They work at the boardwalk. They work in the haunted mansion. So I always like to say hi to them. And whenever something was about to jump out and be like, right before that, he'd be like, oh, this is Fred up here. Hey, Fred. And Fred.
Oh, no, that wasn't just him. That was everybody. People said that. People had a name for the character. Yeah.
That's what men do. That's what fathers do. That's what you're supposed to do. I think more than you're supposed to like try to trick some
in fact, Fred, I remember that. That wasn't a personal thing. That was a phenomenon on that ride at the boardwalk that you just gave me a flashback. I haven't thought about it since I was a kid. But I remember that the guy who comes out being referred to by name, and it was probably fucking Fred. Yeah.
And he did it with all of the things that would surprise you so that you couldn't be surprised.
Right.
And on one hand, I'm thinking like, oh, he took away from this girl the potential for being traumatized. But and that's horrible because I got to have that. But then I'm like, wait, maybe I'm jealous, or maybe maybe like I'm more powerful than I had it, or maybe it doesn't need to happen. And I think we constantly want to force people to go through things we've been through that we don't understand.
I think that there's relevance, but I also think it's kind of like how you started with this, where you were acknowledging a gulf of extinction that exists between a mystery and a secret, which is something that at one point I had to bring this up to my rabbi, because as we were studying Zohar, I kept on, this word sod is used so much, where they're like, what is the mystery of the thing? And mystery. And at one point in the commentary from Ramak, he said he was relating to a secret, and he's speaking to a secret. It was a different Hebrew word than I was used to, and I was like, that's not sod. What is that? And he was basically talking about the unexpected value of ignorance. So he's saying like, and also kind of like being like, it's the only section that I know. There's 2 sections that speak to a prophecy in the Zohar. The rest is not prophetic. It's not a book of prophecy, but it was within the commentary on one of the prophetic sections. So the context was, he was basically saying not to be in a hurry to reveal the secret, because it's an open secret. This is something that will be disclosed in the long term, but also that there's kind of an effect that happens with people realizing that if you're going to remove the veil, that there's something that takes place when it's built, because the fall was still part of it. So like the idea that we build all this knowledge, which is further and further compartmentalization, which makes us feel more and more isolated, even within ourselves, that it reaches a breaking point. So it's like when you get to the bottom, you come back to the top of the slide renewed. So it's like an alchemical thing that it's describing, but it's saying that this thing that we're relating to as the problem is both the problem and has its function. And so it's like, it's good to know, but at the same time, this isn't just another piece of knowledge, because if you were to just tell people this, they would relate to it as further compartmentalization. They wouldn't get it anyway, unless if it really got to that breaking point where most people won't step into that unless it's come down to a type of threshold that's being broken,
Right. So, and I think people will say they're experts, and this is like, I've used the word differently for years now, because it really just means to have experience to have experience is fine. I think existentialism isn't the answer, but having experience isn't evil. But to say that an expert is somehow has the accreditation of being more aware or wiser, this is not correct, right? So you can have experience in something and think you're an expert, and that keeps you from developing, versus being a eternal beginner. If you're forever a beginner, that state of being at the beginning where you know you're in ignorance, you don't even know what you're trying to learn, and you're just moving forward. If you move so quickly from beginner. So if you stay in beginner and you constantly think of yourself as beginner, and whenever you reach expertise in the past thing, you're now the beginner of the next thing, then you're better off. But the only way to do that is to acknowledge ignorance. I agree with that.
Right. And so Kabbalah is a tricky one, because Kabbalah started out as one type of thing, and over time you had, with the Reformation, and you have the Ari was basically taking Aristotle principles and applying them to the Kabbalistic tree, and kind of like giving a new framework to what had always been. And so now if you listen to, people giving talks on Kabbalah and stuff, like even modern rabbis and stuff, it won't read anything like what used to be said of it. So you have that happening with traditional Kabbalah, where you think you're looking at traditional Kabbalah, but you're actually looking at the Ari's influence from Aristotle being projected into Kabbalah. And then simultaneously you have a further removal with all the European occultists, and who are very into the pageantry and the secrecy. They're really into the secret thing, because it's like a fraternity. And so that fraternal thing isn't really what it was like. So as far as it being a club, like, there was a need for secrecy. If you want to see, there's a book by Aryeh Kaplan where he describes the history of Kabbalah, basically how we still have this tradition, like how this is even maintained, because this had to move through the dark ages, so not and beyond. Like, it's something that multiple times in history had the possibility of basically being wiped out. Like, we wouldn't have access to this anymore. And so in that, what happened with it, the same thing that happens to most religions, is that it gets kind of it gets hijacked, or it gets kind of twisted in a way that adapts to the zeitgeist of a later period. So and it's like so we had like the Enlightenment, and then we're going to take the old thing and be like, oh, we know better now, or we know how to explain this better now. It's really kind of strange how that happens, but it does happen.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at like Neoplatonic society also, and how that shifts things, because for the Jewish tradition of becoming a man or a woman when you're 13, the Hellenistic culture was moving it towards like maximization of puberty. So 16 to 18 really kind of emerges in the ancient
It's also
Greek
how
time.
long people lived too, supposedly. So
I feel like ancient Greeks and Jews probably didn't have that. I don't know.
Greeks, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's much later, but I'm like, when you're talking about the whole of history, the way people related to things are like, well, if you're going to be here for fucking 30 to 35 years, maybe you might want to start having kids a little sooner, something like that.
Yeah.
Life expectancy. But
it is. Yeah, that's another thing, is I think the idea of the young families that they were having at the time, and now we look at it like, can't start to learn these lessons until you are 55 or something. That is coming from, you're supposed to have already gotten your kids grown and have taken care of that business.
Right. Well, there's a reason that's not. Yeah, that's there's that phenomenon of, like, in Sanskrit you say boga apavarga, which is like experience in the world and transcendence of the world. So they're like, you want to get your experience of the world in before you transcend it. Because like, because it makes sense too, because you develop an ego and then you transcend the ego. It's different than if you just, in the first place. I don't know. It's like there's something to that, developmentally, what's taking place. But, yeah.
Dude, pig and elephant DNA just won't splice. I saw some awesome Raggedy Man 74 set up this beautiful meme. Give me some of that SYNCTANK. This is what it feels like every time SYNCTANK happens.
That's how I feel usually when I'm on here.
Yeah, I'm on SYNCTANK. I can't help it. I don't know. Let me pull up also. Just a little bit more of that Taylor. Yeah. Can't stop us. We're in charge. We are free. DNA just won't slice.
a secret lab where science meets the bizarre. They try to play God, but it didn't get far. We an elephant, and I like McMahon.
This is a good one, man.
We get elephant DNA, just won't spice. DNA made very nice.
You know, she had a good line in one of those last songs. Had a great music video. Taylor Swift. I'm just gonna say she had one good song in that last album. That was a particularly good song.
Which
and
one?
she in the music video, I remember she stepped on a scale and it said fat, and it was showing like her self judgment or her own like whatever, and they made her remove that. So like they changed the music video, and I felt like it was lame. I felt like she actually was saying something, but you're not allowed to like reflect on it or whatever. It was weird. It's like I feel like we're being babysat all the time. Like somebody like the babysitter has to like stand in front of the TV so you don't see some. It's just I don't know, man.
I remember when it was like 1990 something or other that on E or Bravo they had like an all-day special about Paris Hilton, and I remember thinking like Paris Hilton, I don't know who that is. And then I remember like I'd been at the Marriott, I'd been to these hotels, and I was like 10 or something. So I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this girl just sold her soul yesterday. And this is the Back to the Future video about the pleasure paradise, because she went from being a trailer park trash fat girl to being this anorexic, rich, famous person. And I don't know, like in the Faustian sense, I do feel like that happens where people trade and you get the people that end up that powerful, or like they had to give up everything, but they didn't want what they had, right? Like she probably lived in a trailer. That makes the most sense to me. In another dimension,
it's just this thing where it's like somebody's expressing something creatively, and we're like, it felt to me that like what she had produced was actually better for the people who they were trying to protect than them trying to like I felt that was more of an insult for them to say that she had to take that out, because it was like what she was saying in the song. Like it was one of those, like I have hardly listened to any Taylor Swift. I'm not educated on Taylor Swift's catalog or whatever the hell, but I watched this video, and honestly I watched that video and I was actually kind of moved by it, and I felt like she actually said something. And so I was like, that was a really fucking good video. And then I was like, is more of her stuff like that? And then it's funny because it's the one thing that I find out, they made her change that. And I was like, that was one of the best parts of the video.
If you have
those people, like
in learning about Taylor Swift, you can take the new BYU Swifty philosophy course. And so I don't know what to say about that, but that exists, right? Mormons are studying Swifty philosophy. So that's scary. I don't know even what to do about that.
I'm still on board with this. I think this is good, net positive, and I'm not saying that out of jest.
I appreciate your opinion. I think that makes a certain amount of sense. I mean, where do you see the future then? Like in terms of net positive, like we've talked about some of the concerns. Where do you think this is going to go?
Describe being Christ-like, and it's like you can't ever really truly become Christ-like,
unless you're eating Crossland. Yeah,
you have to do a few things that aren't possible. But this feels like a new 2024 Americanized version of like your Swift-like. I feel like it's a version of Christ-like where they've set up this ideal that even Taylor Swift herself can never really like grow into, right? And she has to be restricted. But if everyone were to strive to be like this fake version of Tay-Tay that they're projecting, it would ultimately be a net positive on society. But like we can't really achieve that the same way that if we all try to be Christ-like, it would be a net positive on society.
I don't see how people being like Taylor Swift would be a net positive on society. I think she being herself is the powerful thing. And looking at like the fat Taylor Swift, like there's a million like fat women that look like Taylor Swift fat, you know what I mean? And then I don't know. I feel like they're better people probably than Taylor. Like Taylor Swift traded all of that so that she could be, I don't know, could be wrong.
I want to speak to the comments because somebody in there is going off about like good song. Come on, man, what is a good song anyway? I don't know. I will just say that a stop clock can keep the right time twice a day. I felt like I had seen an example of something that good. Is it a judgment? I felt that it was quality in my assessment. I felt like there was a good quality song that was on her last album, and what do you know? That's the one that they had to censor. You know what I mean? I'm just like, is that just how it goes? Like, was she just kind of like pushing the envelope for a second? And they're like, no, you can't even go that far.
I'll
It's
tell
just
you what,
like,
if you like one of Taylor Swift's songs, then you will like 21 other of the same chord progression songs that they're all the freaking same. And I know that's punk rock and we're talking about pop punk and all that. But yeah, I mean, if you've got you've got a mathematical formula down, I respect that. That's actually respectable if you're good at math. I mean, it's fine. I don't trust it. Somebody though, you mentioned Jesus. Edith Wharton is cooler. No, I'm not saying that, but she's pretty sweet. You should check her out. But the ruling class, the movie 1972, starring Peter O'Toole. How you seen it?
Oh,
you seen this one? Remember this one? This is a great movie. This is a movie about a guy. It's called The Ruling Class because what happens is his father, who's been in World War I or II, all around the world, his father hangs himself every night in a tutu, you know, for a little bit of
this sounds like my kind of movie.
A little bit of autoerotic asphyxia. All right, just as it existed, it happens anyway. And he's surrounded by this bed that his grandfather had brought to every country that they ever invaded and colonized. So that bed, you know, whenever they're in a tent, that bed. So he's come home and he accidentally kicks the stool. So this time he accidentally actually dies. And that's a big problem because they don't know what to do. I mean, the person who's supposed to be in charge is his son, played by Peter O'Toole. And Peter O'Toole was a bad guy in school. And they told him, why don't you be more like Christ? You have to be more Christ-like. It's like, all right, I'm gonna. Challenge accepted.
Two-man-shoe here.
He full on starts wearing a crucifix at night. He sleeps on a crucifix every night. He's full Christ-like, right? And he's the only one who can afford to be because he's the part of the ruling class. No one stops him.
Dude, I just recently saw Siskel and Ebert talking about this movie, giving their appraisal of this movie. I'll just tell you right now, they didn't like it.
Well, that's just when people don't like movies. That's how you know they're important movies, because that's the other Americanism. I think. Oh, I have a Western.
You know what? I'm sorry. I have to say something though. As I'm telling you that, as I finished speaking, I just realized that I'm full of shit. And I was talking about a Peter Sellers movie that's very similar. It was Peter Sellers. It wasn't Peter O'Toole. Peter O'Toole. Yeah. But the same kind of period, same kind of movie in a way. It's like one of those like kind of out there kind of thing.
The thing is, like, he is the one who, according to nobility, has to be in charge, and they want to control him. Right? It's the same thing as any pop star. They want to control the pop star because he's part of the royal court, and the royal court can't have some crazy guy running around. So he has to disguise himself as a normal person long enough to take over the throne. And when he does, he's planning on going full Jesus, right? Whatever that means to him. And I think that it's like he's going to become a Superman, an Ubermensch, God. He's going to become a God amongst men. And that really scares the rulers of the ruling class, all the people around him that have been, you know, putting up the tutu and the rope for the last leader every night. They're afraid he's going to start making some of his own real decisions. I think The Ruling Class is an important movie about Taylor Swift.
Reminds me of the movie King Ralph with John Goodman.
King Ralph is...
Do you remember this movie?
Arguably a better movie, to be honest. I like them both, but yeah, this movie...
I like this one because it represents like this would be the true evolution of not only did America fight off the British, but we went back over to Britain and took over their country too. That's what King Ralph is. This is America taking over the UK.
I would argue this literally did happen, but in Germany and during the Sophia Naturalization Act, and then in the late 18th century, you can see when the King of Hanover became the King of Germany, and of course the King George 1, 2, and 3 could barely speak English. I think King George III
couldn't a great even speak English. That scene when he plays the piano is amazing.
Yeah. I love this movie, actually. I think everyone should probably watch this movie as well. And a lot of the things in this movie can't happen anymore. They have a family photo, which electrocutes the royal family. At this point, the royal family is not allowed to all sit together for fear of them all dying at once. So there's a lot of things about this movie that have, you know, not stood the test of time. But at the same time, it's just a great movie about the actual state. I'd say it's not really the Americanization of the British government, but the reminder that the British government already is Americanized. It already functions as a democracy. It already hides the monarchy's sovereignty and authority.
I agree with you 100%. And I would add on top of that, what this movie did for me, and even in retrospect, is it really highlights the complete absurdity of all the extra rules that go on in like this aristocracy sort of class. Because Ralph is as much of aristocracy as you can get within America. He drinks just like Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump has Big Macs and he drinks, Diet Coke. Like that's
like steak with ketchup.
But everything else, like all the fancy plates and all of the weird rules that he doesn't understand and everyone's mocking him, like that's actually America mocking them for having those stupid rules. Like, why should there be an entire Rube Goldberg experiment and like how I sit and how my fork goes? Like, why can't I just go and slam a Big Mac?
I would say that's not a very American scene, and that's a very Rockefellerian, socialist, anti-bourgeoisie scene. Because what they're saying is, why would you want to be like the bourgeoisie? And they're not giving you an explanation of why the bourgeoisie do these things. I mean, the reason why you fill your day with a Kantian rhythm, right? And it's when you pick what you do with your day, it's a Kantian rhythm so that you only do certain things, you don't do other things. It keeps you free time to do the things that have been scheduled for you, and it keeps you from making mistakes, right? Like using the wrong fork with the wrong meal is probably not a huge deal unless you get you could probably get a dental infection. I don't know
dude.
What the reason is.
Dude, Bill and I had a pretty good movie idea yesterday. It was this like the humiliation rituals. So it's like somebody's like going through the grades or whatever, but there's no new benefits that are coming. They're just getting humiliation rituals. So it's like, they're like, I thought that this meant, it's like, oh, sorry.
No, bro. It just gets more humiliating 33 times. What did you think?
Worse. And they thought that, well, if I did the thing, then I would be in the, you'd leave me out. What? So it's like, what's to stop them from like taking any member of so the rest of the guys are all just having to go at the one initiate who never really arrives. He just keeps getting more humiliated.
Forgive us. We taught him wrong as a joke. Yeah, pretty much. I like it. I think we can make that movie. I like it.
Yeah, okay.
Speaking of movies that David Plate works on, here is the sync of the day. No. Wait, here's the sync of the day. Yeah, The Rose paired with Janis Joplin's album Pearl, which is like pretty amazing film and amazing album. So I actually really liked this one, and it doesn't look as blurry as this when you look at it properly. I'm sorry, but if you go to my page, you can go and you can watch it. You can also go to David Charles Plate, which is MK Ultrasound 723 on Twitter, x.com, and you can go to the syncbook.com, where you can click on videos, and videos will take you, actually his page takes you right there. But if you go to research and synchronicity occurring in multimedia, the font will change right in front of your eyes, which is amazing. And then you can watch some of the other movies he's done. He's got hundreds of amazing synchronicity films, and I recommend these for a lot of reasons. One, they're just fun to watch. These are fun movies with great music. These are some of the most important movies to watch, some of the most important soundtracks to listen to. But put together, I really feel every time like I've broken some sort of mind control programming that's been installed in me. I swear to God, every time I see one of these, I'm like, this is actually what they don't want you to know was in the movie that they hid in plain sight. And there's always an interesting reason why he picks the music that goes with the movie. So check these out. If you haven't seen some of these movies yet, there's a great way to watch them. Yeah, and I love The Love Witch. That's another one I'm going to recommend. Check out his Love Witch sync.
The director of that movie actually I shared that with her, and she started following me on Twitter. It stuck me out.
That's based. I love this movie. I think it's one of the nicest. It's not nice, but it's beautiful. It's a very beautiful movie, and I wouldn't say it's as dark. Like it's romantically dark. It's not in such a horrible way. It's dark. It's got some issues. It's campy. It's campy in such a way that like I could see a lot of people who don't like a movie called The Love Witch. They would love this movie, so I recommend it.
Also, on a technical level, like a lot of movies have tried to do that like campy 70s look, but they actually nail the perfect.
It looks right. Yeah, I think they must have shot on 16 millimeter or something. It looks really great. And then I think also Pink Floyd's Animals with Charlotte Webb is really funny, and you could put this on for your kids. I'm pretty sure. I forget what they say in the album, but I think you can get away with it if you're that kind of parent. So check out Charlotte's Web. There's nothing. Honestly, Charlotte's Web is darker than Pink Floyd, so you're fine. That's something to do. Also, Paranoid American is awesome. I was gonna go to
there's only 2 of those left.
Yeah, guys, you're gonna have to. There's gonna be none left after this. If you guys hurry up, you might be able to get the last pack of stickers. That's basically
this was a good one. This was the remaining stock of all the exclusives that I did in 2023. So I'll be putting more packs together. But once those 2 are gone, that's That's the end of these.
Limited time only. I'm only telling you guys because you got minutes.
Step right up.
You better hurry up if you want those. You can still get some of these awesome sticker packs, like the Jonestown pack is really beautiful. I recommend that. And of course, shirts. Get some swag because you know how cool Paranoid American is. Make sure other people know. If you wear an adrenochrome shirt to work, they're gonna ask questions. They're gonna ask questions. So you're gonna want to. You're gonna want to get
the
that
kind
shirt.
of questions that you want to ask. It might just
That's
not
right.
be from HR or your boss, but you do want someone to say, "Hey, what does that mean?" And then you can explain it to them.
Yeah, you should get a little name tag that says "Asking me about Taylor Swift" and put it on any one of your shirts from Paranoid American. That'll be cool at the water park. Yeah, we don't need at work. Park. At work, where the watering hole.
Oh, the water cooler.
The water cooler.
You can wear it at the water park. Why not? You go to Raging Waters.
See, ironically, I spend as much time in the water cooler as at water parks when I work. I had a problem. So make sure you guys buy comic books. Support
one of everything books. Actually, if you love the truth with a capital T, you'll buy one of everything. If you don't, then maybe you won't.
And I'm going to try to set up Thomas on a date with Rob Liefeld, and we'll see how that goes. That'll be
everyone's getting pouches.
Yeah, that'll be cool. We'll get pouched with the pouches. So go to twitter.com, go to x.com/paranoidamerica, where you can pick up more tweets, I think they're still calling him, he's Xting all day. And he's also got chosenone.com, which the new issue is coming out. So you guys are going to want to check that out as well. It's on Kickstarter. And this
is launching as soon as I put the time into launching it. Like
now he's being honest about it. Okay.
Within the next week, this one's launching, Chosen One.
So yeah, Paranoid American, guys, make sure you follow him. And then, tartarynova.com for good measure. Go to Tartary Nova. You can join the Discord. The Discord's actually pretty pumping recently, and I've been more involved with the Discord for the last couple of weeks. I'm trying to do more Discord stuff. We're going to try to do more Discord live radio shows with the members, so jump into the Discord. And, we have, of course, AI, music, conversations in every direction. God, that it's probably like the most popular thumbnail I've had in a while. I bet you it's going to be. But you can go through here. We even got a new section. Where did I put it here? In Mormonology. Is that it? Mormonology, which is really
hell yeah.
It's actually pretty cool because we've got where did I put a bunch of stuff here? Look at all these hard to find Mormon videos from the 70s and the 90s. This one blew my mind. If you were going to teach kids about the Book of Mormon and you had like enough money and you weren't on drugs, this is how you do it. You'd start it out with a black and white thing, bored kids in school, and then they walk into a 1980s world with a giant Book of Mormon gets struck by lightning and everyone's wearing sweaters. It's amazing. It's actually pretty much one of my favorite videos ever.
This almost looks like an episode of Ghost Rider.
I'm so into it. Okay. Guys, make sure you go to the tartarynova.com and join the Discord. And thank you for being here. And we'll do it again very soon. Love you guys. Oh, wait. Is there anything else you guys wanted to say? Because I just went like all on my little rant.
I think that we should have Will Morgan on sometime soon because I see him here in the comments saying, trying to
you're welcome.
And stuff.
Or something?
Well, every time I invite Will, it's family night. And so Tuesday, I think, is the only night he can. So next week, Will, if you're available, you're invited. And then also Zach Bauer. Zach Bauer was supposed to be here, and I didn't give him the link until the show was about to start. And I'm sure he was busy because of that.
They live close by each other in Colorado and used to work together.
Oh, dude, you guys should hold hands. That'd be cool. All right. I love you. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.